Welcome to the Rugby Bits podcast. And this week we are going through the third week of the Rugby World Cup games. We are looking at the epic clash between South Africa and Ireland that happened on Saturday at Stade France. And we're going to be looking through some of the other big news stories. The injury to Antoine Dupont. We've got a lot of pressure on Australian Eddie Jones after their loss to Wales. And yeah, just a lot of things are happening in the rugby world. It's myself, Thala, and Kooks this week. Kooks, how are you doing?
Charles, welcome back to from Europe and the World Cup. Yeah, I'm all good. Jeez, what a weekend of rugby. I think one of the best stretches for a while in terms of quality of games. Yeah, really enjoyed it. But how was your trip? Are you all well rested? Having been involved in the World Cup, seeing it face to face? How was it?
Yo, guys, if you can, go to a World Cup. But I mean, obviously, it helps if it's in France as well. But yeah, I had a great time. Loved watching the games live. I thought, you know what, in general, things were quite decently organized. Like, we had the Marseille game after the England-Argentina game, and we saw what happened there. So we went there quite early, and it was quite nice there. Like, yeah, I'm Mr. Planet Everything. So like, I'm that guy. We were going with a group of friends. So I'm that guy in the group of friends saying, guys, we're going to get there 2 hours early, actually 3 hours early, and make sure that we get there all relaxed, nothing to rush into, no lines, no nothing. But yeah, the just seeing fans from all over the world was awesome. Like even on the flight to Paris, it was just like, it was Welsh fans, Aussie fans, Fijian fans, obviously Springbok fans as well. So that was quite cool. And yeah, just interacting with the rugby world was great. Yeah, it's definitely an experience that I'll never forget and was an awesome thing to be a part of. Yeah, Cooks and I were discussing that we're gonna, I don't know, have to get, I don't know, like a secure bubble or something like that if we want to go to Australia 2027 because of all the wild animals there.
I'm not leaving South Africa to go to World Cup to get attacked by a python. Like, because it happens here. You know, risk of it here in South Africa. And I can't leave to Australia. We basically go to Jumanji and then in order just to try to watch Rugby World Cup. So, but I think I'm missing this year's one. So I'm gonna have to take one for the team. I'm gonna have to. I wish like cricket, like rugby had like a cricket version of it, like a Champions Cup, like like in the middle of the. In the rugby calendar, I just got like, oh, get all the teams together somewhere in England, and then go in there for 2 weeks, a small little tournament. Then I would go. But yeah, I think I definitely I can't miss another World Cup. So I think Australia will have to. I'll just probably stay at the Sydney Opera House. I think it's probably secure there. That'll be my plan.
Who knows? Who knows in that country? Cooks, I think before we get into deep rugby analysis, we have to analyze one thing. It's really been in my head for since Saturday, but I think it's cool, but also so annoying that like Ireland has zombies as their song. They've obviously taken it from Munster and all that sort of stuff, but geez, it sticks in your head the whole time. And that poor video of that guy that rugby pass caught from South Africa that was contemplating his life and the thousands of rands that he spent to watch the Boks lose, like that was a lot of Springbok fans on Saturday.
No, 100%. They probably they have to hate the Cranberries now. That guy's got no time whatsoever for the Cranberries. He hates that song. He hates the band. It's just like that song is always going to remind him of of heartache and just going to France and seeing the Boks lose. But it's an incredible song. I mean, the way they were belting it out on Saturday was, and some of the videos I was seeing on social media was incredible. I think for us, I mean, it is hard. We have Shosho Loza, Sister Pokina. We do. I think we do need to find a way to get our own sort of songs and sort of our own. Like we've been preaching this for about a year now. So even in the URC, we've been preaching about this. That we need songs. We need cheers. We need something to do. Like we need or adopt like a rock song, a popular song, just anything but Sweet Caroline. But we need to find like a song that we can also have. Because I mean, like I ever saw. But now the funny thing is, you see the tweet. I saw a Munster fan that says, as soon as this Rugby World Cup ends, remember this is Munster's song. So you can go back to singing your own songs and you go back to the club side. Just don't get carried away here. No, but I think it is amazing. I think, we need like, one Guijo. It's easy enough for like everyone that they can sing along. Just one like that comes on, like, like when you play England, for example, Like they just sing swing low like from the first minute. And it's just, it doesn't matter whether like it's still 0-0, they're still gonna be carried home. Like they're still like, I know it sounds even better or worse if you're losing to England and it's like they're like swinging there with like two minutes to go and you're like, yeah, okay, we've lost the game. So we need one Guijo that we can all just be able to pull out whenever. The only time we actually do sing songs when we sing Ole Ole when the haka's on. That's pretty much the only time like we galvanize as a country in song to actually like do something is when they was playing, we'll sing Ole Ole.
Man, and that really is it for us. The only thing that you forgot to add, Kooks, which it sounds like the World Cup, like I was at the stadiums and I could hear it even when I'm watching. So I think the World Cup has like a victory song for each country. So like when you win, they play a particular song. So obviously for Ireland, they've chosen Zombies. In South Africa, they've chosen Galagata, which is obviously fun. If you've been hearing it for the last 20 years. And
I never knew the French were fans of Sean Pollock.
Big fans of Sean Pollock. No, AP was saying that like it's rugby heritage that Ireland can sing like Fields of Athenry and Zombies and stuff. It's also our rugby heritage that we've got Galagata and got awkward white people dancing to it.
I still think like when you put a tender, that song only should belong to Cricket Now, Galagata and Sean Pollock. It's like, or should like just give him all the rights. Like, here you go, buddy. This is your song now. Like, if you want to use it, you need permission from you. You got to move on from Galagata. I've said this many times, and Sister Bettina, but problem is now, like, all my white friends love the song. They are obsessed with the song. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's their song. Now, for the next 15, 20 years, we're going to go through what Sister Bettina become the new Galagata now because of this mess now. Oh, man. Just want to say a quick Joe. Oh, like there's like a hymn we can just steal. Like, you know, like there's some, you know, English or the Scottish fans will sing, or Welsh fans will sing Bread of Heaven. Like, can't we all come together and pick our own, like our favorite hymns from school and we all vote and be like, okay, cool. This is the hymn we're going to sing during the Boks games. Like, surely we can all do that. Surely, you know, I mean, surely we can find some.
All things bright and beautiful.
Yeah, 100%. That'll be our song.
We are struggling in this area. No, I mean,
Thala, we can change. We can change how great our art to how great our arm. You know, we can be creative. We can find ways.
No, we need to because if it wasn't Zombies that they were singing and absolutely nailing, it was also Fields from Athenry, which is an awesome song. Like, I get like emotional hearing it. And like every time Ireland sings it, especially now in the last like 5-10 years that they've been good, like, you know, you're in a test match when that crowd is singing it. So like we are, obviously the Europeans are way ahead of it. Like I was also in the Italy versus Namibia match. And like in the middle of the game, Italy would just start singing their national anthem, which I think is so cool. But I'm also thinking you can't really do that with Gosikele because it's more of a hymn. Like all of their anthems are pretty much like almost like war songs or revolution type songs. I was just like, you know, you can't start that in the middle of a game, like how France has started their anthems in the middle of the game. So yeah, we in high school, I'm sure most other high schools did this as well. We had a thing called shouting practice on, like, I think it was on a Wednesday at break. The whole school would have to go down to a field and we'd all have to like get out shouts and cheers and songs all sorted. Like, we need that. I think we should have done that at Heritage Day. Everyone in the country, go to a field in whatever town or city you're in. Guys, we're going to learn at least one Guijo before everyone leaves. And then we'll have 2 or 3 songs. We'll have maybe a Xhosa Zulu song, like maybe a Sotho song, and then an English Afrikaans song. That'll be the 3 songs that we sing at any occasion that we know that everyone, black, white, whatever, knows at least 90% of the lyrics to. Like, this needs to be the solution.
And then give it like hymn books, like, you know, like in the Bombing Army, like sort of games. Yes. They're like hymn books. So just in case you don't know the words, this is what you got to follow to. No, I agree with you. That's the next step of evolution as Springbok fans for the next World Cup cycle.
Yeah, we'll have to. I think we'll just have to put that on Rassie Rasmussen's list as director of rugby. Like, we need to need to get a proper song. Sister Burkina is not going to cut it, unfortunately. Kooks, we've delayed enough. We need to now dissect this, the victory of Ireland over the Springboks, 13 points to 8 on Saturday. A breathless game, an absolute epic between two strong sides. You could see that this was a clash between number 1 and number 2 in the world champs versus the team with the longest win streak, best defense versus best attack. Like there's many little like contrasts that you have there. And I mean, Ireland, the game started very tight. So Ireland had a lot of pressure on us, but we turned over about 5 or 6 of their first 3 lineouts. And then Springboks came back into it, and then Ireland scored the try before the end of halftime. And then in the second half, they started to stretch away with the penalty. I think Colby scored before that. Then they had the penalties, and then obviously the last minute stuff happened with the Springboks trying to score and then weren't able to in that Roding Mall. Kooks, I think there's not too many games that I think were better than this game on Saturday. What are your general opinions about just the quality of the match?
Sure. Like you said, breathless is actually based one of a great way to describe, but it's so tense, brutal. Like a test match epic. Oh man, it was just incredible to watch, and just there was no one, or there was nothing working harder than the ice bath on Sunday, because jeepers, bodies are hurting after the hits that was dished out, and just a very good game of rugby, Thala. I think the big takeaway is, what I saw is that the Springboks, Ireland, and probably France are sort of slightly pulled away in terms of the 3 favourites. I think the All Blacks are just slightly in behind, and I think we've seen that the Springboks and probably Ireland probably look the best this World Cup so far. I think Ireland, for them, probably passed a big test. I think we've always wondered how they would match up, how the front up physically was with those like Leinster. We saw what La Rochelle do to them. Bulls to a certain extent last year in the URC semi-final. Munster as well this year. Sort of kind of wanted to see what Ireland would do, like when they put under the cosh physically. You know, I thought the 7-1 split, that's what we're going to see, and obviously and see how Ireland would respond, how their attack would sort of respond to the Springbok defense. And I thought, you know, like I tweeted the other day that Ireland actually won that game in the gutter. Like they went into that dark place where the Springboks sort of wanted to send them to, and Ireland went in there. And I think for them leaving there with a victory, because I do think, you look at this game, to like overall, before you dive deep into it, like if we had won on Saturday, Ireland would probably walk away going, geez, we had enough chances to miss it. We missed 6 lineouts. Like, and for them in our own 22s, they probably think, man, we know that's a big striking point for us, our set piece. So we missed 6 lineouts. They also had chances as well to score that they probably didn't take. They'll go, man, there's times you could have actually gone for the points instead of the corner, because they were very aggressive going in the corner. The same sort of thing with Springbok sort of leave with as well, like the 11 points that we left out. There's chances we missed. So I thought, you said it nicely, Thala, whoever lost that game, there was enough to leave them. It's like, actually, it's not all doom and gloom. We had chances to win it. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway is the fact that Ireland actually did go in the gutter. They sort of went in the trenches. I mean, they won a game where they basically got given 30 dominant tackles. Their ruck speed was doubled by the Springboks, and then plus the 6 lineouts that they missed, and they still managed to find a way to win that game. That's huge. That is absolutely massive for them. Because it's one thing if they won playing the utmost base, slick, and you're thinking, man, if the Boks can still find ways to disturb them. My concern is, say you deal with them in the final, they're probably going, guys, there's still a lot we can actually improve on. We can still get better and better and better. So I think that's the big takeaway for me, like from an Ireland perspective. From the Springboks, obviously the missed chances. But I think the Springboks, they also know like we can live with these guys. I'm a Springbok fan. I'm still very confident that we can actually beat Ireland. But Thala, what an absolute battle. What did you think of that game?
No, Kooks, I think you nailed it. I think, maybe we can start with the Springboks, but just quickly on Ireland, we can maybe round back into the point about Ireland. But for Ireland, they've now passed in the last 2 years the All Blacks away test. They beat France. They won a Six Nations Grand Slam. They have a 16 match win streak now, and they've beaten South Africa twice. And in this last game, they had at least a 10-minute period where they did start to open up and start to play their own game. And then that pretty much won them the game last time. This game, as you said, they won it in the trenches. Does Rassie say we play in the gutters, or we take them to the gutters? And that's what they did. And that's, I think, the more concerning thing. I mean, yes, both teams can take some positives and can say they can be better. But the more concerning thing is that Ireland has shown that they're relatively comfortable with the Springboks. If the Springboks take it there and they're not able to get their attack going, Ireland can still beat them, which is a concern. I think for the Springboks, there's a few key things to talk about. I think there's obviously one that's been taking away on social media, but I don't want to actually go into that. But I think let's start with the breakdown. So I think this was probably the losing of the match for the Springboks, unfortunately, and the winning for Ireland. Like, look, we know how good the likes of Caelan Doris, Josh van der Fleer, James Ryan, and Tug Burn are in the ruck. And their ability to disrupt, to muck up, to turn over, to maybe through not the most legal or illegal ways, like to get themselves in the way of an attack building is epic. And they also, it seemed like there was a targeting from Ireland that they saw that, okay, the Springboks are starting to play a bit wider with Manie Libbok in number 10, and they're starting to play more off 10 and going a bit more to play with width. Like there's even numbers that say that the Springboks played 20% of their possession out wide, so more than 30 meters from the ruck. Like Springboks did that for 20% of the time. Ireland did it for 4%. I think most people would have thought that it would be the other way around. And Ireland seemed to target those wider rucks. They kind of did what we usually do to teams that try to play wide against the rush defense. It's like, okay, go wide. We'll tackle you. You have no support there. We'll turn you over. And that's how Ireland was able to turn over the Springboks 18 times compared to South Africa turning over Ireland 12 times. I don't know if there was an actual fault in the racking. You know, there's maybe some things that maybe some individual players could have done here and there. But I just think Ireland's racking was just a lot better than the Springboks. And I'm not too sure what the fix is, because maybe it's a matter of balance, because I think maybe in hindsight we could have maybe, like let's say, had a fetcher maybe in the mix for just to help us with our defensive rucks. But I'm not sure like what the fix is for the Springboks. But Ireland, I think, won the game less so with the goal kicking, but more so in the collisions and the rucks.
I think also a big thing, Charles, I think in ruck time, I think with Ireland, I think what most guys try to do with the Springboks, I think they're so concerned about the other forwards coming around the corner, is that they'll sort of rather wait for a loose carry and then sort of try and bounce the ball, but try to get numbers on their feet so they can actually try and stop the big ball carriers coming around, where Ireland was like almost getting numbers in every single breakdown and trying to force in one extra forward to come in the ruck and force one extra clean and slow the ball down that little slightly more. Because you are right, because the Boks obviously did play slightly wider than normal. And you could sort of probably got a glimpse of it in that first minute from the first kickoff and Faf that moved on the blind side and passed the ball out.
Yeah.
That the Springboks will probably look to play a little bit wider, which they have done under Manie. So you do run the risk of obviously exposing yourselves at ruck time. And Ireland are, like the Springboks, one of the few sides that actually got the proud number 7 in Van der Fleer, but they also have got lots of guys in the backline who are also good fetchers. Bundee Aki can fetch. James Lowe came up with a steal. And then you have centers like Henshaw and Gary Ringrose, who might not steal the ball, but they're exceptional counter ruckers. So it's like it's almost like where the same with the Boks, where our turnovers are actually like, we've got pretty much like the Malcolm Marks, the Kitsov, but like the Sears are exceptional at disrupting rucks. The Peter Stairs to Toy is the same. And I just felt like also, I thought maybe that game we definitely missed a Malcolm Marks. That's one of the games where you do miss a Malcolm Marks. Because I think you look at the starting side, for example, there was not, you would say, an out-and-out ball hawk. in there. We know Sia is good at breakdown, but he's very good at racking in terms of counter racks and racking our own ball. Kitsi is a good fetcher, but Kitsi works so well in tandem when you can actually, without Marks, you can isolate him out of the game because you're actually only worried about him per se. And I thought Marks does add that extra fetcher, and he's so good at it as well. So that's why, for me, I was still surprised Dwayne didn't start for that, just for that reason, to have that extra, to have that fetcher in there. And then I thought Ireland which is the ability to just constantly just throw hands in there, also just force the Boks, just add another rack, add someone else in the rack, and sort of whenever they went wide, they just kept throwing numbers in. I thought, and you are right, and the breakdown is normally where the Springboks dominate. It's always been one of our biggest strengths, our ability to wreck opposition's breakdown on attack, and then obviously the few turnovers and how well we rack. I think people forget how well we tend to be good in our own ball at the breakdown. So for Ireland, you know what, for them to it's a massive gamble and a big coaching masterstroke from the Ireland coaches to actually attack us almost at our best. Instead of trying to negate our weaknesses, they're actually like, you know what, we're going to try to beat them at the source of where we actually very good at. Where not many teams want to go down into that breakdown battle with the Springboks and sort of find other ways where maybe sometimes you can just actually control it and rather try to tackle us backwards, or rather wait for a one-off runner, as opposed to, because I mean, they were basically attacking at every single breakdown. Every time, first carry, throwing numbers in. And the few times they caught us out after the first breakdown, and it was so frustrating. You're like, oh man, how are we getting caught on first phase or the turnover or counter racks? But no, I think the breakdown was, it's never an element where you think the Boks will be beaten at, but it was just interesting the approach that Ireland had there. And I think in the Springboks, I think it definitely is fixable. I don't think there's many sides that can do what Ireland did against us. So it's going to be interesting to see how we negate that. But Thala, do you think, for example, like without Malcolm, do you think we should have maybe thrown in a Dwayne to start and a Jasper on the bench, just to have that extra breakdown presence in there?
Yeah, definitely. I think we could have mixed, because it seemed like the tactic was, first off, we'll have the counterackers. So Sia, Damien Dialendi, Peter Steph du Toit, as just people that if Ireland has the ball, we'll just counteract them. And then the second half would be the fetchers. And then that's when Deon Fourie, Marco van Staden, and Kwagga Smith come on. And it could have been a bit of a mix, but I think another thing that Ireland did really well was they attacked so narrowly. Like, there was no width in the Irish attack. Like, I'm going to watch the game probably tonight again. I'm sure most of the attacks, the whole 15 was pretty much within 10, 15 meters of the ball. And they said, look, we're not going to go out wide and basically do what they did to the Springboks, because they know the Springboks thrive on wide ball, which is what Scotland didn't do in their game. Or what Scotland did in their game was go wide, and then obviously that's when the Springboks feast on turnovers. So Ireland said, we're attacking narrow, and we're going to keep the ball as close as possible. We're going to focus on ball retention, and even if we take our time in getting the ball again and then racking the ball again, and take maybe 1 or 2 extra seconds for each rack, we're going to basically almost tie the Springboks into a mistake by going through phases, making them tackle, engaging them in the attack, and then hopefully there'll be a mistake or there'll be some misjudgment that either gives us the opportunity for a try or an opportunity for winning a penalty. They seem to be able to almost grind the Springboks by playing as narrowly as possible. Now, the Springboks, I think, dealt well with that in terms of attack, or like in terms of getting the tackles done and defending, which is probably why that dominant tackles number was so high, was because Ireland was just attacking narrowly. But the nice thing about attacking narrowly is that all your players are available for a ruck. So it's almost like, yeah, Marks would have helped, Dwayne would have helped, Prime Heinrich Brasseau would have helped, but there were a few opportunities where Ireland had someone carrying by themselves or a very loose carry as well. So I think Ireland did especially well to make sure that they attacked in such a way that things were like racking was done in there were always people available to rack. And I guess, in terms of defensive racks for the Springboks, I think they need to just have the intensity of what they did in the second half. In the second half, they sort of went, okay, 2 can play in that game. similar switch up to what they did against the All Blacks in the game in Auckland in the Mount Smart Stadium, where in the second half they just decided we're going to flood the rucks. And they started to do that. And Ireland's attack was kind of coming together the first half, but in the second half, they almost had no chance. And I think that's the intensity they'll have to play the whole 80 minutes with. And I mean, if you're going to be picking 6, 7, 8, 10 forwards in your bench, you might as well do that and just sort of empty the tank in that way. I think the rucks where we're on attack, that's going to be interesting. And I think maybe if Ireland and South Africa face each other again at the end of this World Cup, I mean, I just saw that we're facing Ireland in July in the Test series in 2024. That's going to be super cool. But obviously, coming to World Cup matters, I think Springbok's plan has to be now to run into the people that are good at rucks. So the old Richie McCaw tactic or David Pocock tactic of, we know you're good in rucks, so let's make you tackle as much as possible. So I think for the Springboks in the next game, Tug Byrne, Caelan Doris, those people need to be constantly on the floor, picking themselves up again in every ruck or in every tackle. Because if they get into a ruck, Doris, sure, I think Caelan Doris is such a great player because his ability when he gets into a ruck to just disrupt things is amazing. Like he'll just come into a ruck and just almost go through the middle of it and just make sure that things are slower for fun.
Like, this is a mess.
Get his foot. He's so good at I'm competing for the ball. I'm watching the ref and I will leave the ball as soon as the ref says leave it. So he almost doesn't concede many penalties because he does that thing of like, okay, how long are you going to let me disrupt here? I know I'm probably wrong and you could penalize me, but you're going to say leave it at some point. And then Ben O'Keefe says leave it. Okay, cool. And he's
taking about 2 or 3 seconds there already. So that's the problem. So
yes.
On the other side, like Ty Bird is doing something like, and I think also Tyler with Ireland, they break sort of like, I think the Springboks as well, it's the balance of how they can attack a breakdown. I think that's what makes us and Ireland so good at the breakdown. It's not just like one threat. It's not just like worry about one feature. It's like with the Springboks, like, yes, you have Fitzy who's great over the ball, but then it's like most of the issue, like what Peter Steph does to rucks is incredible. Like it's awesome. Like Peter Steph, Caelan Doris, Mario Toja could have master classes just not to disrupt a ruck without even actually like going for a steal. Like those three are in the world are probably unmatched in just their ability just to wreck a ruck without even fetching. And then you have the Josh van der Fleer who comes in, who's good on the ground, and Dan Sheehan, another world. So like it's with us, it's such a balanced breakdown like defense of how they can sort of stop you and how they can just disrupt your ball. I think that's why I think on Saturday I knew it was not going to be a 25-24 sort of game. It was always going to be because I think both as good as the Ireland attack is and the Boks attack can be, is we both what Ireland saw and we just both very good disruptors. And just I think with Ireland, I think that the slight tweak is they have also with the attack. I thought the last 10 minutes of each half showed that when they sort of regained control of the game, found ways to score points, they had that in that locker as well. But you're right. I mean, Doris and Peter Steph yesterday, I thought like they're taking turns like who can disrupt the most rucks. It was crazy.
Yeah, look, that was, I think, a loose forward masterclass from pretty much all the loosies that played, but especially from Doris with the rucks. Van der Fleer was also good with the rucks. It was also funny. I mean, there's that clip going around of Ox stamping on Josh van der Fleer's hand. Van der Fleer, by the way, played a whole game pretty much with a dislocated finger. Actually, I remember that happening to a teammate of mine where it's kickoff, he gets into the first tackle, and then he goes, hey, Tyler, look here. And his finger was bending towards the try line. And I almost vomited. I was just like, this is ridiculous. But he went off, and Josh van der Fleer to stay on. And Ireland likes the holding in a player into a ruck, especially when they attack. That's how they create space for their attack to go. So Josh was trying to do that to Ox. And Ox, I don't know if it was intentional or whatever, but he steps on his hand. But yeah, that's...
Street Moss is shithousery meets more shithousery.
Which is, I think if World Rugby is looking into it, it should be fair play. Play on.
Yeah, it should be fair play because Van der Fleer is also basically doing a bit of shithousery. Ox stopped him. So it's like, it's fair. Like, Why is his hand like Josh Van der Fleet should have no corner of the ox at that moment, but Yoshihara got caught out. Unfortunately, you got to have a nice little, and I must as well give your hands a nice little wake up call just to make sure next time we do it again. So like, what rugby like? What you gonna do? Like it's shithousery. They started, and then it's shithousery was shithousery. It's shake hands and move on.
No, that should be the result there. Okay, let's still stay positive, at least on the Springboks. Best performers. I'm going to start with Damon Dialendi. Unless I think this is one of those, okay, let's stop playing around with this debate anymore. If you watch that performance and don't think Dame Dialendi should be the number 12 for the Springboks, is at least one of the top 3 at worst, 12s in the world, then you don't know about rugby or you just don't like the guy, which is fine. Dame Dialendi had a fantastic game. We're going to talk about his opposite number in a bit as well. But he was leading the Boks and their charge in terms of just making sure that the Springboks had, as many opportunities as possible to try and get themselves into the game. I mean, that first half where he had those 3 big carries where he took out Gary Ringrose for an HIH. Johnny Sexton's shoulder was falling off the bone after his carry. Like, I was almost, in some ways, it was a bit of a disappointment that the Boks didn't use him more in the second half. I think they could have, gone through the midfield with Damien a bit more, because actually when you watch the numbers or you see the numbers, Jesse Creel had 8 carries and Damien had 5. Like, it should probably be the other way around. And I think defensively, Aki and Ringrose are probably up there, but Dialendi and Creel probably are the best defensive centre pairing in the world. So I had a lot of time for that Doug's masterclass.
No, Thala was proper. Yes, those 2 carries in that period. And the crazy thing with the first Ringrose one is Ringrose did so well to press him because, he gave a pass which spent about 64 minutes in the air before he got down to for Dialendi, and then obviously it was a good press from, I think, Manie. It was a good press from Gary Ringrose, try hit him with ball and all. And then Damon Dialendi's like, I'm sick and tired of hearing you being called a New Driscoll. Bah! Have a seat. Just left him there. And I thought Ringrose wasn't the same since when he got back from there, because, cheap was like... And obviously the carry against Sexton, it was proper. I think you are right. Defensively, he was good. The work rate and the amount of work you put in is like you said, it was a big statement game of, I'm sick and tired of this debate. This is how it ends. I thought Creel defended very well as well. I thought, the work he does is so underrated. Especially defensively, and what Creel especially Creel and what Dialendi do defensively is so underrated, in the work they put in, especially against a good centre pairing of Aki and Ringrose, and then Henshaw coming off as well was a very good rugby player. I thought they did well to shut them up, but Dame Dialendi was an absolute beast.
Kooks, what players do you want to highlight from that a good game for the Boks?
I thought David Williamson was fantastic as well. Yeah. I think yes, that's one of his best games in the Boks jersey. The confidence he's showing now as a 15 and got on the high ball. I think, I think every game on David Williamson is like, who am I going to sidestep next? Like someone, he's making like a highlights package of like, who am I going to drop next? I thought he was fantastic. He was everywhere. Probably besides Dialendi, probably the standout back. I thought he was phenomenal. I agree with what you tweeted. I do think we do miss Willie Leroux. I do love the 1-2 punch of Williamson and Leroux, but I thought Damon that he was fantastic. I think he's been good this whole World Cup. I think he's had a great World Cup. I think he's probably been the best back. All 3 games he's played, he's been fantastic. And tell our bench, coming off there in Ox is arguably one of the best scrummers in the world. He comes on and changes games. Arge Sneeman is playing at a level that I get goosebumps about that, because he almost flipped the game single-handedly by himself. The way, like the front foot ball that he gave us, like he almost coming off the bench. The line break he made, the offloads he does. He's playing at an incredible level, and you'd not think this basically this is his first year playing international rugby since the World Cup, because he's gotten better and better and better. it's an interesting case for me. Like, I think I would love to see him playing 60 minutes. Like, a part of me feels like, man, this guy should be playing 60 minutes. I know we love the option of him coming up. I mean, Mostert, I think, once again, Mostert rolls out of bed and gives you a 7 out of 10. And I think that's the sort of player he is. I mean, but like someone like, I just feel like I said the pod last week, losing Malcolm Marx, you're minusing a world-class player and I think in Arceus name, when we balance it out in terms of adding another world-class player, because the rugby Arceus is playing at the moment, oh man, like that guy is phenomenal. I mean, our bench was good. I don't think anyone in a bad game. I mean, besides poor Manie in the box boot, but
Yeah.
I thought everyone was sort of, they all are about a 7, and I think shame we also going to talk about Libbok now, but but like someone like a Damien, both Damiens, Delindy and Willems are probably at a 9, and then you're looking at Erge probably 8, 9. As the bench was our bench coming up again was very, very solid. I think what our bench does, it actually mesmerizes me every time how much momentum and how it's a game changer they are. But what did you think as well? Who else did you have as having a good game?
Yeah, I think you're completely right, Cooks. Everyone, I don't think it is anyone that had like a 5 or a 4, even though the Boks lost. And just going through the team quite quickly. I mean, Bongi Bonambi, I think, had his best performance since the last Rugby World Cup. Like, he was busy in defense. He was constantly just shooting up on Irish attackers. He seemed to be given that assignment of whoever's on the inside of Johnny Sexton, melt him. And he was doing that as much as possible in that game. His line-out throwing was great. It was a bit of a concern of mine because he's been a little bit less accurate in the last few actually in this whole season. He hasn't been as accurate because he's been having like line-out throwing about 80% which hasn't been too good. But he did what he needed to do in this game. Kissoff was great. Malherbe actually even had a steal, which shows how good he was. The Siya Kolisi was great. He led the team with 4 dominant tackles. Like, just to give you a bit of perspective, that literally, the 4 dominant tackles has only happened, or 4 more dominant tackles only happened, I think, 5 times in Test rugby this year. So that shows you like how good Kolisi was in terms of his tackling on Saturday. He had 12 total tackles and 4 of them were dominant. A dominant tackle is basically when you not only stop someone as you make contact with them, but drive them back. I mean, that one up and under that Mac Hansen caught, and he had Kolisi and Kitsoff meeting him when he got to the ground was brutal. That was when I was like, okay, I need to phone Discovery Health and just ask them, like, what's the medical aid cover for me, just on like the secondhand pain I'm feeling from some of those hits. So Kolisi was great. Itzbeth, I think, probably not his best game, but a good game for pretty much any other human in the world. I mean, yeah, we'll talk about the James Lowe tackle.
Thala, I was about to say, a quiet Ibn Elizabeth game is like an 8 out of 10 for pretty much anyone else.
Yeah. So I think that was the Squid Rugby podcast was doing like a review of the game, and they said like he was in every ruck and disrupting, which I think is very true. But yeah, I think there is another level, and obviously he was coming back from injury. But yeah, he was quite good. Pieter-Steph du Toit led us in tackles, had 3 dominant tackles himself. Like, he was the forward that played 18 minutes. Faf de Klerk, I think his box kicking was the best. I don't know about best I've seen from Faf, but it was really, really good. He definitely outclassed Jamson Gibson Park in the box kicking department. Bit of a weakness for JGP, but de Klerk was accurate in most of his kicks. Just a few wild passes here and there, trying to play the width. But yeah, I think his kicking and his decision making most times was quite good. We'll get to Libbok, but I think in general play he was fantastic. We've talked about Creel. Curtly Ardenser, I think, was fantastic. Like, I think there's a lot of debate about who the wings should be and the wing combination, who the best wings are for the Springboks. I'm now at the point where I say Curtly Ardenser is the first pick. We can argue about the second pick. You can argue it should be Colby, you can argue it should be Mapimpi, you can argue it should be Moody or whoever. But Curtly Ardenser, he's now maybe gone above Colby and Mapimpi, as I think he should be the first wing on the team sheet. And then just quickly on the bench, I thought Kwak had a great game. He made a big impact like he always does. Nyakane was also a good partner there with the scrums as well. And I think that change in height, I think that the props bring when they come on in the second half is such a big game changer that I think opposing teams should be aware of. So, for example, Andy Farrell should have subbed off Tadhg Furlong as soon as Ox came on, because Furlong is a taller, tight head, Ox is a shorter, loose head. Beelum had dealt with him a lot better. So I think as soon as Ox comes on for Kitsoff and Malherbe comes off for Nyakane, you as the opposition should also change your props if you have especially tall props. But yeah, I think pretty much everyone had, good to very good games. Yeah, I think now we have to turn to the Manie Libbok goal kicking, Handré Pollard issue. Yeah, Kooks, there was a lot of talk about this on social media post-game. The facts are, so Manie Libbok missed, he only converted 1 out of the 3 of his kicks. Just for a bit of perspective on his kicks. So the first kick, the one he had in the 6th minute, was inside the 22, inside of the 15-meter area. Easy kick, he slotted that. His second and third kicks were actually a bit more difficult than I think was given credit for. His second kick, I think, was makeable. It was just beyond the 22 and just inside of the 15-meter. So a bit to the side, should have slotted that. So yeah, fair enough for that. His third kick, which was on basically the star where the 10-meter line and the 15-meter line meet, that's a pretty difficult kick. I don't think there's many kickers except for Ramos, Ford at the moment that I think I'd be pretty chilled or pretty certain of that they would make that kick. And then Faf de Klerk also had 2 long-distance kicks. Unlucky with the first one, but on the other hand, it basically led to the Springboks try. So we can't always say that the Boks make their kicks, they get an extra 11 points, because you have to minus the 7 points, or the 5 points, I should say, that the Springboks scored as a result of the Colby try, because Faf hits the post somehow, or it bounces in a bad way for Ireland. So after retain it, they get that scrum and then they go in to score the try. So yeah, there's obviously talk about Handré Pollard starting, that he should obviously take the kicking. And I think Kooks, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, I agree in the sense that, look, Libbok didn't do what he was supposed to do with his kicking, and we need at least 75% kicking if we want to win Rugby World Cup knockout games. So Handré Pollard's probably the best chance in the squad to give us that. But there's trade-offs here, because Pollard is only played 30 minutes since May in that game for Leicester against Sale. And then in terms of, even if Pollard is at full strength, we lose the attacking threat that Manie Libbok has. Because of Manie Libbok's passing and attacking kicking ability, we can play much wider than we can with Pollard. But maybe that's not the worst thing, because we're going to knockouts. We're going to be playing a lot more narrow now. I think we lose. We also in an awkward place, because this new game plan or new way of playing that the Springboks have played has come more or less straight after Pollard left, or Pollard got injured last year. So is Pollard going to try and continue with a new game plan, or are we going to go back to an old game plan? If we do go back to an old game plan, is everyone else comfortable with their roles? Is there not a bit of confusion with roles and where everyone should be and all that sort of stuff? If the Springboks can adjust basically to a more narrow than a more wide and expansive game plan, power to them. But that's, I think, has potential for confusion. I think there's questions about the bench now. So if Pollard now starts, does Libbok go into the bench as an insurance option for maybe the last few minutes if you need a bit more attacking flair? Do we go 6-2? Do we go 5-3? I would argue you go 5-3. And then the whole debate, because this also has a consequence on Willemse and Leroux. So if we play Pollard at 10, you probably need Willie Leroux to help you with the attack. So Willemse, who's played really well, does he go onto the bench? How do you manage all of these things? So Kooks, a lot that I've said now, but yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on this Pollard versus Libbok debate.
Thala, it's tough, you know. I mean, you know how much I love Manie trees, Manie, my Manie Libbok. It's hard. I mean,
Money
the
trees. Sorry, I've never heard that one. That is
and then
fantastic.
like, you know, with what he does give the Springboks such a new dynamic, especially on attack and the way we play. It's incredible. So you can't not mention the kicking. You know, it's a problem. It's a problem that needs to be, unfortunately, that needs to be rectified. Goal kicking is something that's probably been plaguing us since the end of last year when we were doing that thing of using 5 different kickers. Basically, I mean, it was a free for all for us kicking for poles. We had 5 kicking, then Phillips kicking, then Colby kicking. So goal kicking has been a problem for a while, and if we are, I think, operating at just over 50% for the tournament, which is not good, and it's something that going into, especially games like on the weekend where you throw away 11 points, it is massive. I still think we shouldn't. I probably wouldn't have gone for the corner for the second time on the halfway line. I just feel like when you have 7 forwards, you at least attack the Irish at more time. I'm still surprised why we didn't maul as much as we did. But I do think that you look at with Holland with Pollard and Manie. I think for me, I do think Pollard's got to come in. I think it's as harsh it is for Manie. I believe in him. An ideal world Thala for me, I'll still start with Manie and probably look at Pollard coming off the bench. That's I think the way we play under Manie is it's different. But I do hope that I do have a slight feeling that we might. I think I do feel bad that Pollard does get a slightly bad rep of being not as attacking as he should. I mean, he's shown glimpses of the way he may not attack in a way that Manie does in terms of like distribution and things like that. But Pollard is more of a ball in hand sort of threat as well, probably a bigger ball in hand threat than Manie Libbok. And we saw the way he was playing for the Tigers, how he opened himself up. His distribution was a lot better. Chip and chase, attacking the gain line. I just feel like when Pollard is confident and he's running at players and it opens up the other aspects of his passing, because you can't. Pollard's probably got the best show and go in rugby because you can't let him actually run at you because of big and physically. He's always a threat in the 5 meter line, so you always have to sort of mark him. It opens up space for other runners. So it's going to be interesting what he does. Obviously, we should probably start against Tonga. It's going to be interesting to see how we get through that. But I think I wouldn't be surprised to see us going with Pollard at 10. But I will go to 5-3. I do think that the 5 forwards we do have, I understand that our strength's always been our pack, but I feel like the attack we've got now has improved so much that someone like Manie on the bench is a massive option for us to have, and we have different ways to close out games. And I think that is what we sort of need, and have those different options to sort of to close out games. And so I would love to see Manie on the bench, and maybe if you do sort of really Steph Williams are coming off the bench, or maybe Willie off the bench with Manie. So I think that's the sort of option I would take. I mean, I know if Pollard's been put in several positions this week, whether it's 12, 13, 15, Manie at 15.
Apparently Pollard has played every position in the back line. I saw Pollard at 13. I saw Pollard in the wing. I saw Pollard playing at hooker, I'm sure.
I was just like when I saw, obviously, when I saw the Manie at 15, I was like, we saw the Sharks do this. We saw the Sharks try this with Colby and Manie. We saw it happen. And also we have 2 very great fullbacks already. I'm like, can we not shift any more players out of position? Like, I just think, Thala, either way for me, whether we start off with Manie or start off with Pollard, I still think you have 2 great options at 10, whether we want to close games out with Pollard, coming off the bench and sort of being the insurance. I remember like a couple of years ago, Gatlin, that's the approach he wanted. Remember when he wanted to start Anscombe and then have Bigger on the bench to sort of close out games. And unfortunately, Anscombe got injured, I think 2019 World Cup. And I think you almost have to use them, I think, as in tandem, where Eddie Jones tried it with England, where there were games where you start Farrell at 10 and then forward goes to the bench, and then some games you play them both. I think with the Springboks, I think it might be a horses for courses thing, where there's certain games where you actually got to start Manie because you want to give it a good start. Like all those games, you actually on Manie to close the game and Pollard to start. So I think that's how I would use them. Not one at 12 or 15. No, guys. But it is hard. I think, unfortunately, we have to state the obvious that the kicking is a problem and something has to be done about it. The reason I do feel bad for Manie, because this is not a reflection of how he truly kicks. That's the frustrating thing, I think, for Storm. I mean, I'm not saying he's more than Stain, but he's definitely not a 37% goal kicker. He's probably operating in the 75, 77, 80s, which also Handré Pollard is not a more than Stain sort of kicker. I mean, he also is in that sort of, there are times, and you said, Thala, Handré Pollard there's been tough times for us as Handré Pollard fans, and I think Handré Pollard's his legacy and his stature is probably grown by being injured, because obviously he hasn't played for a while, and he's so I'm massive. I think what's happened was, sorry to rambling here. What happened was, when Handré Pollard went down, at this stage, you all knew he was the number one flyer. He's been the number one flyer probably since 2015, with no debate. I think we have rallied around Manie Libbok, and we've seen the change inside of play. And I think it's shown how well Manie's played, for the fact that it's even a debate. And it's actually a massive debate to see who starts, which is all credit to Manie Libbok. Because you all assume that anyone thought that this is Handré's Pollard's jersey in waiting. So I think that's the credit I give to Manie too. But unfortunately, something has to be done about the kicking, and I'm interested to see how the Boks deal with the situation.
Yeah, Kooks, I think it's a complex one. And I think it's obviously going to be somewhat the making and breaking of the World Cup in some ways, because there's so many other ancillary consequences to this decision as well. So, when you look at just how the Springboks went on Saturday, there was a lot to like, I think, in terms of just the opportunities in attack, that they were there, but I mean, partly through great Irish defense and them getting turnovers and big tackles and ruck turnovers and stuff, but partly through Springboks mistakes that we weren't able to maybe execute and finish up opportunities, because we had 6 entries into the 22 and only got 8 points. Ireland had 10 entries and 10 points, so it wasn't that much better. But we need to be much better in that if we want to win. And I think the Ireland game is a big reminder that we are not, or we won't always have it our way up front. That, look, Ireland, probably France and New Zealand at full strength, they're probably the only teams that can live with us at least for a good chunk of the game up front. So they can not leak scrum penalties. They can ensure that their lineouts are decent and they don't leak penalties from rolling mauls. They can ensure that they're not dominated in the collision as well. And they can try to basically keep their penalties below 10, which Ireland did on Saturday. They only had 9 penalties. So that means there needs to be a plan B. And I think what the Springboks have been doing in the last years, especially post the Pollard injury, is working on that plan B of, okay, we're not going to try get a score from, we're not going to get a try from a rolling maul. We are not going to get penalties from the scrum or from the maul or whatever, because maybe either the opposition's matching us or the referee is not giving us any credit. What do we do? And that's what we saw with the Ches and Colby try. So we win, okay, scrum is obviously going well. We win a penalty advantage. Now, there's a situation where maybe we scrum again, we try to do a pushover, and either we mess up or the ref messes up, and then that opportunity goes. We saw that Andrew Porter and Todd Furlong were able to keep at least solid against Kitsoff and Malherbe, for example. So, and then we saw that Ireland actually won a scrum penalty when their reserve props came on in the second or late in that half. But with penalty advantage, we didn't just do a speculative cross kick. We actually executed a really good backline move. Dialendi coming short, Libbok looping around, and then delivering that long pass to Ches and Colby. Fantastic, great move. I mean, as much as I completely agree with Pollard's a different type of attacker, but I think one of the things that he's not as good at as Manie is he's just not as good of a passer. So even that pass that Libbok delivers to Colby, I I'm sure Pollard can, but it's not as much of a done deal as Libbok can with that. It's similar. It's pretty much the opposite sides of the kicking debate is the passing debate, that Libbok is an 80% passer and Pollard's probably at a 70% passer. So there's that sort of thing that I think the Springboks have been trying to grow. And now it's a thing of like, okay, you have to make some adjustments when playing with Pollard. He doesn't kick from both feet. He doesn't have that option of that cross kick that Libbok does. He's not really good at all with passing on his left. He has to stop to do that. So you can't really play 20% of your ball out wide and 46% of your ball in the midfield. You have to maybe play a bit more of 9, and just to make sure that you mix it up a little bit. But using then the advantage that Pollard does give you of him being able to really go up in the gain line and engage defenders like you talked about. And I think the second thing is, I think Handré Pollard through absence has become like a mix of Morné Steyn, Johnny Wilkinson, and Neil Jenkins in terms of his accuracy, which is obviously just not true. Like Pollard is a 80% kicker, I think, in decent form. Even in the World Cup in 2019, he started badly and then he got good in the quarterfinal and semifinal against in the World Cup. It's not like he was, Percy Montgomery. Like, we also have to, I think, accept that with Pollard coming on, unless he's obviously on like really good form, which he can be, it's not a done deal that we're going to get 90, 100% of our kicks. Unfortunately, Pollard's not Thomas Ramos or George Ford, or these other big accurate kickers that are in other teams, or Johnny Sexton even. So I think we have to admit that we have a goal kicking issue, and it's one of the few areas that other teams, especially the other top 4 teams, have a bit of an advantage over us, regardless of if it's Pollard or Manie Libbok. And then, I think the consequences for the bench are just very interesting because, I'm a big Pollard must play with Leroux person. So then, I think that probably means Libbok and Willems come on. And I think it means we have to go to a 5-3 split, which has its disadvantages. But I think, which goes into another point that I had with the bench, is I think in a big game, like the Island game on Saturday, I want Siya Kolisi and Ebenezer playing 80 minutes. Obviously, with the situation that we have now in our hooker department, I want Bongi Bonambi playing 75 minutes or 76 minutes, just like Andrew Porter. So maybe this kind of forces the team into that corner, if we can put it like that, to go, okay, we're not going to now do a whole new forward pack because, as much as obviously Ox and Ake were great, our forward pack of, Ox, Trevor, Dion Ferry, Klein, Snyman, Van Staden, Kwacha, and Peter Steph Toy was going up against still, Kalen Doris was there, Josh van der Fleer was there, Tug Byrne was there. Those are 3 world-class players already. Dan Sheehan was there, another world-class player. Ian Henderson was there, an experienced player. Philip Beelum is also an experienced player. Like, there was enough quality in that Irish pack that, yes, they're dealing with a fresher forward pack, but they still have enough quality to be able to deal with that. So I think there's certain teams, which is Ireland and France, I don't think we can overwhelm with a 6-2 or 7-3 or 7-1 split, sorry. So I think we need to just change approach and just go, okay, we'll just have our best forwards come on and truly just try to get impact from Snyman now joining Etzebeth in the second half, or Kwacha now joining Peter Stephen Sia in the second half, or changing our front row and all that sort of stuff.
And also, to disturb, I also think that our attack is also good enough to sort of also be a threat. I don't think we always have to be reliant on our pack. Like, we need to have fun. Like, yes, you always get fun football because our pack is incredible, starting or reserve. But I also feel like we're going to be like, I know we're trying to keep that same intensity going for all that for 80 minutes, but I still think we have good enough backs off the bench to sort of hurt the opposition. Because I think what worries me about, for example, 6-1 and 6-2, there is no room to change a background player. Let's say if they're not playing, they're not having a good game. You're almost forced to certain, because for example, if it's Reinach and Vili, Vili's coming in for Willemse, or Willemse shifting to 12. It's almost like, I just like I think so maybe it's time we look back at having that extra option there. Like you can have a Moody, you can cover a center and a wing if say Creel, you're gonna mix it up and maybe Creel comes off or you want to move Willemse to 12 and Damian can go to. But also, we're still having an option of a Libbok on the bench, having a 10 on the bench. Where I think I do hope we do also make that shift. I do think our attack is good enough to hurt us. I think our backs are good enough to make that sort of impact. And I think sometimes I'm not being, I don't want to be like come across as reactionary because we've seen the wonders of our 6-2, we've seen the wonders of our 7-1. But I also think, like you said, Thala, like certain teams now know like the way they attack them and they sort of stare it head on. And I think that we are missing a masterstroke when.
I was just going to say very quickly, a 6-2 with Marks and Ludia, or Mostert now on the bench with Ludia in the starting team. I think that's a lot different. And it's not disrespect to Jean Klein or Dion Free. Klein's obviously a very good lock. But, you know, he's a little bit of that level below having Mostert or Ludia in the team. Dion Free versus Malcolm Marks at hooker, obviously that's no contest. But I think we also have to realize that we don't now, with that 6-2, we had pretty much in the top 20 forwards, we probably had 14 of them. Now it's a bit more even because of the injuries that we've had.
No, 100%, Tal. I think that's why I think that must come with different type of thinking. We saw the 7-1, but I think 5-3 is definitely an option. I think for me, I think you need Pollard and Manie on there. Just both of them on the field at the same time. I mean, not at the same time, or just both of them on the squad. It's going to be... I don't think you can play them both at the same time. I think... I know people talk about the option of Pollard playing 12. I like the option of Willemse at 12 in terms of in the second half and Willie at 15 in closing out games, in certain games. That's the option that I like because I still maintain that... I still think 12 is probably Willemse's best position. I like him closer to the ball, but not at 10, but it's still a second pair of hands. And I mean, 15 is amazing, but that's the option sort of that I like. And then say doing the 13 but I think with Manie, I think it's a great 1-2 punch to have in Manie and Pollard or Pollard and Manie. I think it's a great 1-2 punch. I think it makes up losing though. Like for example, like again, just having that extra world-class player to cover for one where we're missing one where maybe now we don't have the same as a Trevor Marks, but now it changes to a Manie and Pollard. So you might not at hooker, it might be slightly different. I mean, it's no slight to Dion Free. I think he's a phenomenal rugby player. But he's not Malcolm Marks coming off the bench. But I think now instead of having that at hooker, we can shift that to sort of to the back. And I think that could be the little masterstroke that teams may not have prepared for when it comes to preparing for the Springboks this time. I think every team is prepared for that 1-2 punch from the forwards. But now imagine having a 1-2 punch of Manie and Pollard, that little shift in focus. I think that could be a little masterstroke that makes a difference for the Boks to retain. I think because the Boks to retain Ireland and them, it's just minor things here and there. It's not, there's no side that's miles away or pulling away. I think it's definitely a 3-4 team race, but there's just certain things here. I think certain key decisions here and there, how they manufacture side. I think that will be the difference between Ireland, France, or Springboks or New Zealand. So many winning winning this World Cup.
Yeah, I think the problem or the other side of this though is you're right. Other teams haven't prepared for maybe, the Springboks going for this new idea of a 5-3 split of having 3 backline players in your bench. It's so hilarious that now we're talking about this like it's a new innovation. Guys, how about having 3 backline players and 5 forwards? What do you think of that? Wow, that's a great innovation. But the problem also is that the Boks haven't really prepared. They haven't. I don't think it's something that they've done too much sort of preparation for themselves. And this is now not necessarily through, a bit of misfortune on the Springbok side, but it's just not something that we have really developed. So, I'm a big consistency, same teams, same 23 being predictable. That's how you win a World Cup. Unless, even for the Springboks that come in every 12 years to win a World Cup, our best or our World Cup wins have come when we have pretty much the 20, you can name the 22, how we're going to play. There isn't too much surprise in how we're going to do it. We just do it at a high level than anyone else. And now, this is the other side of this Pollard Libbok thing is we've now stuck with Libbok for close to 10 tests now, and we've built a game plan around him. We've done as well as we can with them. And I mean, it's not like Pollard is completely new, of course not. But now, how do we dovetail those two things together it's going to be very fascinating. And that's another reason why I'm sticking towards if Pollard's in or if Pollard comes on or whatever the case is, Pollard must go with Leroux because Pollard and Leroux have great chemistry from, the last, close to 8 years they've been playing together. And Libbok and Willems obviously play together at the Stormers, and they've been playing together for the last few tests for the Springboks. They must stick together. And then that must be sort of how we think about these things from now on, that it's almost a buy one, get one free type of situation. And it's not a slight on Willems. Like every time I say Leroux should start, people think I'm saying Willems is not good, but it's definitely not the case. It's just a combination thing. And Pollard and Leroux work well.
That's how it works when you suppose Springboks. If you say someone else must start, it means you think the other person is shit. I don't make the rules, Thala. We don't make the rules. You're not allowed to say someone else must start because you mean that they're shit. That's the rules. That's how it works. You got to get to the program. I know you went to Europe for a bit. You're still trying to rejig yourself in the system. I'm just stating the rules. They just so when people listen to this, like when they drag you on Twitter, just know this. What to expect for. What to expect. Jeez.
Yeah. Sunday morning was fun because just trying to ask for some nuance in this Pollard Libbok conversation seemed to be a bit too difficult for some Springbok fans. So we'll see how that happens. And I think this Tonga game becomes quite big. Actually, before I say that, another thing that Libbok does really well, literally to a world-class level, and unfortunately that tweet then had all the replies about Libbok doing other things badly, but I was just making a point about this one thing that he does really well. Libbok's line kicking is the world's best. I can't think of another 10 or I can't think of another player that gets as many meters as he does with his penalty kicks to touch. He is elite at that. He gets 40 to 50 meters all the time. He's been doing it at the Stormers, and I was like, this is quite cool. This is really nice, and obviously he can do it on both feet. Him doing it at a Springbok level as well is just, it's chef's kiss, and it's also just brings another reason into the whole, like, why didn't we do this against Ireland? Pollard, we know that Pollard likes an overcooked kick once in a while. So, these next few weeks are going to be, there's going to be a lot of banter about, obviously, from both sides of this debate, if you want to put it like that, about, the faults of Pollard, the faults of Libbok, and other stuff. But, like, I'm going to laugh because in all likelihood, it happens at least once every 2 matches for Pollard. But I'm definitely going to laugh at that because, Libbok has been doing it so perfectly for the last few weeks that it's one of those things that you remember only when you see it again. It's like when you see a cousin or someone that you hang out with once a year and you're like, oh, this is so cool. And then you after a few hours, you're like, oh yeah, that's why we don't hang out as much as we do.
But you're right. I think like these debates, always get a little bit toxic in terms of because you sort of highlight one thing about something else, so you don't. I think, like we're all rooting for the to kick well, and we all want him to do well, and I think we're allowed to sort of, like I've always hated. One thing I've always hated is like when you're comparing two players, there's got to be a way of doing it without bashing someone else. You know what I mean? Like for example, like can't be like, oh, his line kicking's been good. You're like, yeah, but I can't kick for poles. Like we don't need line kicking. We need like, whoa. For example, like take away Manie Libbok's line kicking, the penalty we got in the half line, and for him to put us 5 minutes out for that maul try. That's an incredible kick for the corner. Opens the whole game up. I'm like, oh, geez, those are ridiculous. So there's certain things you got, like you said, like certain people have certain strengths, and unfortunately, yes, we can call things out. I mean, like as do call. I mean, I was gonna say something on Sunday, and I was like, oh, maybe I had a little too many beers. So I thought, let me actually put my phone away.
Good decision.
I do feel like we try to be as consistent as we can in terms of. I don't even say it's criticism. Like we call out like, yeah, you have to. Our goal kicking at the moment is not great. Yeah, just calling a spade. But you're allowed to be like, yeah, but Libbok offers this and Pollard offers this, and without trying to be justified in that. I mean, Pollard is one of the greatest teams we've ever produced in this country, but he has his own faults, and we've accepted those faults, and that's what he comes with. I mean, it doesn't mean that he's not a great player. Bodenberg is a fantastic fly-off, but there's certain things that he can't do, and it doesn't mean that takes away from his greatness. But yeah, no, it is frustrating. But Thala, to wrap on this thing, before it becomes a full-on Springbok podcast, did you think it was a penalty at the end? I know a lot of people were saying that the ball was available, a penalty, I'm saying that the ball was available, and Bundee scored. To be honest with you, I thought he was going to call it a lot. I thought he should have always going to call it a lot earlier. Because as soon as that ball went 100%. Down, so it didn't pop. I was like, oh, geez, no, it's done. Then he walked. The moment he actually went back around, just the second angle, I'm like, oh no, this is a more done. Because I think obviously the law is that I know the ball sort of became available, but the law is that at Malta, if a mall's collapsed, the balls will become available immediately. So, for example, and I thought, for example, like that Bundee sort of slightly delayed it. He almost got himself into trouble actually by trying to be sort of more conservative. Like,
yes.
So, I mean, I know it is harsh. I've been countlessly abused by mates for saying that I don't support the Springboks because I've said like, guys, that was the right call. He actually could have blown a lot earlier. What did you think, Charles, before we talk about Handré Hounds?
Oh, goodness. Okay, very quickly. I have a friend that sent me a video, a YouTube video from, a legendary YouTube channel called TAS Analytics. I'm not sure what analytics they do. I don't know who this person is. But if you're not aware of TAS Analytics, please let it stay that way. But they basically do videos with very thrilling and scary music about all the mistakes that the referees are doing and some big plot by World Rugby to, I don't know, like make sure Ireland wins or something like that. Who knows? So he sent me this video and I told him, in no uncertain terms, I'm not watching this thing. And he said, no, man, it's actually really good. He's being quite fair this time. Like, just watch it for me. Couldn't get through 2 minutes of it. But yeah, like I can very much identify, Kooks, with that, with your experience of friends calling you out because you're not going to agree with them that Bundee didn't mess up. And in general had a really good game, actually, especially with how much I think both teams are doing in terms of pushing the edge of the law and the collision. Like he managed it really well to make sure there's a contest, but it's a fair contest. But yeah,
but Kooks, like you said, like one thing I do like tell people, like Ireland definitely pushed the boundary. So the Springboks.
100%.
But so did the Springboks. They did the exact same thing. So it's like, I know there was a few like 50-50 offside calls, Ireland coming over. I'm like, but the Boks did the same thing as well. I'm just saying like both teams sort of do push, especially in the breakdown. The Boks do push the limits aggressively in the breakdown. And some of the and we do get away with it. I think rugby is good, and I think in rugby it's become a sport where the better you are at stretching the law, because like you said, there's certain things you can do where you can I can disrupt a ruck illegally and wait for the ref to be like, okay, roll away, okay, cool. But I've already wasted 3 seconds. Like I'm in the wrong, and the Boks do have a way of disrupting at ruck time, and sometimes we get lucky, sometimes we don't. So everyone goes like, oh, no one, these teams keep pushing the ruck. I'm like, we do the exact same thing, and it's like, oh no, I'm gonna agree with Ben Smith. Oh.
Oh, when he replied to my tweet on Sunday, I was like, oh my gosh, this has gone that bad.
I remember, for example, like you mentioned the thing when it was like, they say like the Boks might hit Sexton slightly later. I'm like, but every team does that. Every team hits Sexton and like gives them a little extra, or the scrum off. Ireland did the exact same thing to Faf. They were hunting him down from behind the ruck, tired burning them. Like every team does do that. I mean, the Boks, they do tend to do that. I mean, poor Finn does get as soon as they pass, gets a little extra hit and so. I'm like, I got like every team does that. I'm like, oh no, I know we are so like defending, like sometimes like if anyone comes from Springboks, but I was like, I was like, guys, one of these perfect rugby saints, and we push the law, and I appreciate the way the Springboks play. I love how far they stretch and can stretch the law, and how actually, Thala, the thing is how great we are at it as well. Because like we all like, see, I'm sorry, sir, Mr. Ref, sorry, something saying. But meanwhile, down there, we're like putting our hands in the cricket jar as far as we can. Sorry, sir, we're so sorry, sir. Here's a picture of hope.
Swearing. We're not swearing at refs like certain Irish captains.
Yeah, we're not. And then like we go back to cricket nonsense. They're like, so remember in our country we fight. Look what we're fighting for, sir. Just let us get away with the slight rug thing. I know it's not been a fit for winning, but look what we're fighting for back home. You want to see hope? You want to see hope? Like, I've got like, it's not a bad thing to do that. Like when my friends call out like, yeah, but this seems like it's not a bad thing. That's how the rugby works. Like we just happen to be very good at it now. We used to be caught out by it for many years. Now we've become really, really good at it. But we're also good at disguising. Like, oh, but we're just good guys. We're just guys from South Africa just want to play rugby. I'm sorry, Manie. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, exactly like what other teams swear about it. We just go about it in a nice way. I hope no World Rugby referees listening to this and be like, oh no, we got the memo in these dogs. But I just got like, guys, the Springboks are a fantastic side. One of the things we're good at is how good we are with the laws.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we just sometimes get a bit too protective over the Springboks, and we just need to get some perspective that not every negative thing said about the Boks is slight. I mean, yeah, a certain publication, I'm not going to mention them here, but they had an article now about France disrespecting the Springboks. And this comes from Reda Wardi, the French Lucid prop. He said that Springboks are a great team. It was a great match on Saturday. Like they played like warriors. And they're obviously very like tough guys and great rugby players, but they're not supermen. And then this publication said, France takes a subtle dig at the Springboks. I'm like, are you kidding me? But obviously they're doing it for clicks. I completely understand that. But I was just like, oh my goodness, we need to really get a hold of ourselves with these things. But yeah, I think just to round off the Springbok conversation, it's one, the question for the Springboks in this 4-year World Cup cycle has been relatively twofold. Number one, can you be consistent and win 3-4 big matches in a row, which they pretty much have to do now if they want to win the World Cup, beat Tonga, and then obviously go through in the knockouts and win 3 out of 3. And the Springboks have only had one or two winning streaks of 4 games or longer. This one that was broken by Ireland, we had a 6-match winning streak, and we had a 4-match winning streak last year over the test last year. So it's the gauntlet on the Springboks to be consistent when it matters. And unfortunately, they just haven't really been able to do that. There's just something that's not cutthroat for them that just stops them from doing it and being able to be consistent game after game, which is the tweet that Ben Smith unfortunately agreed with me on. It's just, there's something that and I agree with Ben on that there's a reason why the Springboks are 65 or 60 odd % in their winning record in the last few years. And until we fix that, we can't really expect the Springboks to be number one in the world or like the clear favorites for the World Cup, because they have all the ingredients, but they just can't really put it all together for some reason. The second thing is, what is your plan B? And we now know that there's teams that can match us up front with 6-2, 7-1s, all the sorts of combinations. And it's always been about, okay, what's your plan B? And that's what the Springboks have been developing. And now this is what's going to be the balance between goal kicking versus having that attacking game plan in the next few weeks. And yeah, it's going to be a big test now for Rassie Erasmus. And I think it's going to be a big coaching job. Should the Springboks win from here, it's going to be a big and a massive coaching job from Rassie Erasmus, because you're not only balancing the likes of Marks, Lodiaga being out, you're also balancing, a 10 situation that isn't clear. You're balancing, your goal kicking 10 having only played 30, 40 minutes of rugby in the last few months. You're balancing between these different game plans. You're balancing between uncertainty in the squad. You're balancing and sort of tinkering and tapering so much. And you look at Ireland on the other side, everyone was talking about the 7-1 bench and how it's going to blow Ireland out the water. Ireland just went about their job and they did it on Saturday. Andy Farrell didn't even get into a war of words about it. Rassie said that thing about Ireland having he said that, Ireland might be South Africa's bogey team, but the World Cup's are Ireland's bogey tournament. Farrell said nothing about that. Farrell picked the same 23 he pretty much picks in every game. Farrell basically went with a slightly variation of their game plan, but did what they usually do. And then when he was taken out of their game plan, they adjusted. They adjusted to losing 5 lineouts in a row. They adjusted to having 5-second rucks basically the whole game. They adjusted to playing as narrowly as possible. They adjusted to Springboks putting them under pressure in the second half, and they won. Now, usually in Rugby World Cups, when teams like Ireland do that, what they did on Saturday, when teams like France do what they did in the opening game, that's usually shows you which teams are probably going to win a World Cup. And that's the challenge for the Springboks is I think now, and we can maybe talk quickly about Ireland, Kooks, is I think now Ireland has shown themselves to be the most consistent team in the world, the team that knows themselves the best, the team that can adapt to any situation and can problem solve for things on the field. Because I think the good example is the lineout. They lost all of their first 4 lineouts. It was crazy. I haven't seen lineouts lost like that since Kevin Mialom in the Victor Matfield days. And they adjusted. They said, okay, we'll do a short lineout. We'll do a few little dummies and all that sort of stuff and do a bit of animation and then get ourselves a clean lineout ball. And they fixed it. And they had, I think, only 1 or 2 lost lineouts for the next 10 or so. They fixed that problem. They fixed the problem of how to attack South Africa. They fixed the problem when the scrum was going under pressure. They fixed things. Like, that's the reason why Ireland looks so good. And yeah, they also just getting such great performances from pretty much all their players. Like, we need to mention Bundee Aki and how amazing he was on Saturday, that he's very much thrown his hat into the best 12 in the world ring. And yeah, there's so much about Ireland right now that I'm looking at, and I'm just seeing them on Saturday that this looks like the best team in the world. And I just still don't understand how it seems like 70% of the rugby world still doesn't respect them, though, which is hilarious.
I think I tweeted Thala a couple of weeks ago for the World Cup start, and I said Ireland's biggest competition is not actually the Boks, All Blacks, France. It's actually their history. And that's what they're battling against mostly, because obviously the odds of never going across the quarterfinal is, and they'll never get the due respect because they've never gotten past the quarterfinal. And I think, like, for example, if Ireland lose the All Blacks in the quarterfinal, it'll be one of their worst losses. And it sounds bad because it's the All Blacks, but this Ireland side is better than the All Blacks. They should beat the All Blacks, and it's like the way they play, and I think with Ireland now, it's, I just had this feeling, like coming to the World Cup, I thought, listen, like, if this was the Springboks or the All Blacks or England or Australia coming in with this sort of form, having now it's at 28 of the last 30 tests, 16 in a row. It actually wouldn't matter what the draw was. We wouldn't be thinking about the Black Lions also going to steal the World Cup. They're the best. Like you said, Ireland's ability to problem solve is amazing. Their ability now, like you said, they can go down to the gutter and they can dig up performance like they dug out on the weekend. They can show the flair like they did when they picked apart the All Blacks last year in June. They can go toe to toe for you in a shootout like they did against France at the start of the year. During this run, they've won games in so many different ways. It's not just been sort of a straight out. I mean, for example, like when they played Samoa just before the World Cup, they had to find a way. Like, we're not great today. We just need to find a way to get through this game. And whether you win by 1 point or 5, we need to find a way to get through this game. So they've won games in multitude of ways where it's not just been this is how you beat them. This is the platform. Yeah, of course, there are ways to disturb them. Obviously, a lot of it is dependent on Johnny Sexton, who's, I was thinking, like, you can just see his effect on that side, Thala. I mean, with him being back in certain games, just the command he has on that side, and you can see the calmness that he brings. He probably looks rattled. He's always going off, but the calmness that he brings, the ability to adjust. The Omani's, Peter Manie was massive in the lineout, so almost taking control of the lineout and going to the front. He becomes massive. You look at the Ty Burns. Ty Burns is such a fantastic rugby player. He's so good. Hugo Keenan again. I don't think Hugo Keenan has had a bad game since probably he was in grade. I don't know. I can't remember when last he's had a bad game. It's just, then you got James Lowe and a Mac Hansen who can put their hands up as one of the best winger combinations stack themselves against any winger combination. Mac Hansen's playing incredible, but James Lowe, it's just a side for me, Thala, that just also, like you said, each player there, like there's a certain, whatever game plan they need to play, they have guys that can adapt. If they want to go in a kicking shootout to them, you can, because James Lowe's got a massive boot. Hansen can kick. Keenan can kick. Even Bundee Aki was putting kicks through. if you're gonna go on a physical route, they've got the Bundee Akis who come down the middle. They've got the pack. If you're gonna go for chaos game where it's like going to be a shootout, Mac Hansen is as chaotic as Thomas Ramos, Damon Pinot, Mac Hansen is chaotic. Some of the things that he gets, how the breaks and the things that he gets away with it, and the ball play that he is. But so I think the Ireland, for them, Tyler, the win is absolutely massive. I think there's the same people are saying like if they'd lost for example, we could put a doubt in their heads. I think now them winning, they're going jeepers. We went toe to toe with these guys, with them getting 3 dominant hits, with them doubling our rack speed actually and slowing it down, and we lost 6 lineouts. So if they go, imagine we can get it down to 10 dominant hits. Get our ruck speed down to about 3 seconds. Just take, and we just win 5 of those 6 lineouts. They're probably going, we can actually score points against these guys. And the control they did in the last 10 minutes before they try, took the control of that game, left to get that try. And I thought at the end as well, when they got their last penalty, I thought obviously it was game done. Then obviously, they felt, I don't know what they did in the last minute, but how they conceded this stupid penalty. But honestly, the last 8 minutes, the control that they had and just be able to close that game out was fantastic. And then also, like you said, Tyler, when push came to shove to find something in the Bok strength, they found a way to slow that down and come out with the win. So I think they're an incredible side. It's a side that you can see they've won 20 out of 30, and they know how to win games. They're in the habit of winning games. And I just think for them, they actually want to go. They want to go 7 from 7. They have no time to be dropping a 1 year, just go 3 years. They don't care who they play at the moment. That's the confidence they have. And I think even if they do play France, for example, a Dupont-less France or Dupont and Iron Mask it's a bit of a game changer. And we're going to get into it now. So yeah, I'm just big kudos to Ireland.
Yeah, look, I think that's just a fantastic team. And the last thing I'll say about Ireland is if they win the World Cup, it's going to be because of those Munster men. I think they just add just a little bit of that dog in them, to use an American sports saying, that just helps them get through the tough times that maybe the Leinster boys don't have. So it's Peter Manie, it's Tug Byrne, it's Jack Crowley going for a drop goal, like 2 seconds after he came on and almost nailing it. Like, I think it's going to be those players that will help Ireland to come through, because I think it's a nice mix of obviously the Leinster and the quality and the ability that those Leinster players have. And then you add the Burns, the Manies, the Crowleys, Conor Murray also managed the game so well from number 9 as well. Like, yeah, you get it. Sorry, just very quickly, that Ringrose double pump to dummy and then the pass to Keenan, and Keenan basically almost running into score, but for the brilliant tackle from JC Creel. Keenan, like, there's some players you watch and you just like, you have so much time on your hand. You're just so good. And that's, I think, what Hugo Keenan is. Just effortless in the way that he runs, and he just controls the game from the back, and he gets high balls and he kicks so well and all that sort of stuff. Oh, and another thing is James Lowe's left boot is going to help Ireland also in these big games. And James Lowe's left shoulder pretty much almost put Eben Etzebeth back into Tygerberg. Kooks, he was carrying him all the way back into South Africa.
I couldn't believe it was James Lowe when the replay came. I was like, there's no ways. I couldn't. Oh, man, that was a massive hit. But you're right, these boot and, yeah, that boot is massive. I mean, yeah, that Ringrose double pump. Even that, like, yes, it felt like more like a triple pump because you're like, dummy. And then when you get.
Yeah.
No, it was, oh, geez. Like, Keenan, such a balanced runner, just does everything right. Like, he's got no faults in his game. Oh, he's just so. That Leicester Academy just drives me crazy because just unearth it. Like, you have Rob Carney, then now straight after you unearth a gem like Hugo Keenan. I mean, best fullback in the world, just don't know, just power mile, Tyler. Like, he's this whole class, that guy.
Okay, we've had our dinner. We've had to eat our broccoli. Let's get into dessert, Cooks. Wales beat Australia 40 points to 6. Australia are hanging on by a thread into this World Cup. They'll need some very unlikely results to go their way against Fiji. And yeah, sheesh, I don't even know where to start with this, Cooks. Like, you go through the week, you hear that Carter Gordon has been dropped for Ben Donaldson. The same Ben Donaldson that was the second choice fly half for the Waratahs, who was the third best team in the Australian teams of Super Rugby. Ben Donaldson, who's going to the Western Force in order to try and get some game time at 10. Yeah, that Ben Donaldson, he's starting for Carter Gordon. You then hear that, okay, no Skelton, no Tupou. Dave Parecki finally has his first press conference as captain because he's the sixth captain in 7 games for the Wallabies. You then hear Max Jorgensen is injured, even though he came to the World Cup injured. And they wanted to call up Dylan Peach. They called him up and then they phoned him and said, nah, don't worry about coming. Probably because they saw that this result was not going to go their way. It's going... Oh, Eddie Jones then has his press conference. He assures the Australian public that they're going to win. They're going to fix all the issues. They're going to win this game on Sunday. And you're like, okay, pretty typical week. Australia, you haven't done anything too crazy. The Carter Gordon call is a bit weird. Playing Leota and Tom Hooper, not Michael Hooper at 6 and 7 is a bit weird, but you know what? That's fine. You haven't done anything too crazy. Boom. Sunday comes out. Sunday, the Sydney Morning Herald comes out. Eddie Jones having interviews with Japan about their head coaching position. And the excrement hits the fan. And then they just play. I think the thing that signifies the Australia game are 3 moments. They concede a penalty in their first ruck in the game. Secondly, that decision to go for the line out when they had 3 points in front. And then in that line out, Leota trips over the lifting pod. The lifting pod then doesn't go up, and then it's an overthrow to Jack Morgan, who kicks a 22-22. And then number 3 is in the second half, with the game on the line, they concede a penalty, and then they concede 3 points soon after that as well. This is a rabble, Kooks. I don't even know what you call them. Like, it came to the point where I was like, I have so much slander, but I'm actually now just feeling absolutely sorry for them. And I don't know about this Eddie Jones, Doc Rivers situation where he's got himself another elite job, even though he's not cooking anything now. But Kooks, I don't know. What do you think about this whole situation? No, he's Doc Rivers for sure.
Lance always does a good job.
I've seen that man fraud us for so long. Doc Rivers still living off 2008. Eddie Jones still living off 2007 and the Brighton miracle. Like, I've defended this man for so long. I'm hanging up the coat. I'm done.
Do you know what it is, Thala? I said the Wallabies, the mess they're going through. The last team you want to play is Wales. Like, the very last team. Like, Wales and the Springboks, to be honest with you, like, in terms of, like, you got this young team. Because the thing, like, for example, they play like the All Blacks or someone, like, they can need to throw the ball around. You know what I mean? Like make it a shootout. But you got this young team with another young 10, because you told us that young 10s need time in the saddle. And if you bash them, you don't know anything about rugby, mate. You don't know anything about rugby. So we're going with your words. Then you took him out the saddle because he's your only out and out flower. Because Ben Donaldson, you put him at fullback, who is the third choice fullback for the second choice flower for the Waratahs. You've moved into 10, who started, if I'm not mistaken, starting his first game at 10, his first test at 10 against Wales. After obviously like leaving Foley, Cooper, and all those guys at home. Like, the last team they needed to play was Wales. And then obviously Saturday morning, then that drops. And I thought, going into Sunday, I flew from East London, and I thought, you know what, on the plane I was thinking about, I'm like, oh man, like, I really think that the Wallabies could do something here. You know, they need a big win. This could actually be the thing that galvanizes them. Then as I landed, I opened my phone. Guess the first thing I see? Sydney Morning Herald. I was like, yeah, these are done. Sorry. No, these are done. And the thing is, they fell apart like a cheap tent, basically, because once Wales just wore them down. And it's like, I support Chelsea. So I've seen many a manager lose a dressing room, or many a manager on the verge of getting fired. And you sort of see the performance when the team goes out, you're like, yeah, this guy's leaving on Monday. Like, the team, this is done. Like, you can just see, like, it's how the Wallabies in the second half felt a little bit like a nothing performance. It's just like I don't know, like almost like they're ready to go home. And Wales absolutely feasted on their demise. Wales, it was a test match rugby. They didn't, like you said, they didn't have to do much. Just boom, corner, take your chances, go to the corner, experience, just slowing the game down. Big comes off, Anscombe comes, take 9 from 10 from the boot. Great set piece try, Maul in the end. Like, the only thing was missing is probably a drop goal, but just wore them down, and the poor Wallabies had no one to lean back on. I think the Eddie Jones, is gotten this horribly wrong. I still don't understand how we didn't go the England route in terms of just getting the right guys to get a bit of experience, sort of build. Because I think like with Steve Borthwick, for example, like if England get to a semi-final and lose, that's still a great building block to build from the next year. It's like, because no one, he's come together, build a good defense, got the pack going, players boring rugby, but it's what you need to do at World Cup. I mean, I know a certain side that went down a similar path and became world champions and got a great documentary from it. So I'm saying like Eddie could have gone down that path, and now he's sort of like he has to win the Lions Tour, Thala. If he says he has to win the Lions Tour in 2027, he has no choice now. Because you can't now use the World Cup as a training camp and then now go to like Lions Tour. Now I'm like, he's got to do something. Like, I don't know what it's going to be.
It's going to Tokyo, Kooks. That's what he's doing. That's the next move here.
But I don't know what the Australian rugby is going to do, because now I see rumors of Robbie Deans coming back. Goodness. They had a coach at the start of the year. Yeah. But Thala, they had a coach at the start of the year. And the reason, actually, Thala, they are so shit is because this is what happens when you have test matches on Thursday. You can't fight against the karma gods. They're going to get you. When they have test matches on Thursday, make us watch a Breathless World Cup game at 4:30 in the morning. This is what they deserve. They deserve this. Portugal, if you're hearing this, I need you to do me the biggest favor. It'll be the funniest thing in the world. The Wallabies try to be too good to the game, making us watch test matches on a Thursday. On a Thursday. Like the only thing, who watched it was it? Now look, Thala, the rugby gods have come back and they've proven me right. I've prayed for this day. He's done miracles on me. This is the day I've been waiting for. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And I feel nothing for those guys. Nothing at all. I feel nothing for the Wallabies, and I feel nothing for the Dragons. Because yours is starting soon. I want them to know I feel nothing for them too. That's my rant for the day done.
But let me not even engage on that. These guys had a coach who was actually in the middle of a training camp for this World Cup. And then they announced that they're firing him. Hamish McLennan and the Rugby Australia board deserve literally everything that's coming to them in the next few weeks, because they really, like, for C and D, we see what's happening there. You don't even need to be a brilliant team. So I tweeted that, Australia getting thrashed by a team that's not even playing that well, it's playing like a basic version of rugby, and had 100 Wales people being unhappy about that. But the point was not more on dragging Wales. It was more about Wales aren't doing anything special. It's not like we've seen Australia get thrashed in the last 10, 15 years. We know Australia getting thrashed. Like when they get thrashed, it's either the Springboks in the Highveld just going crazy, or it's New Zealand just going on one of those like 10 try sprees after they've run them close in the first play, the slow game. Like this wasn't anything like in terms of like a special thing or a brilliant performance. They just did test rugby, and Australia couldn't hang with just pretty normal test rugby. So Australia could have literally had a team that was competent. That's all you need to be in order to get out of Pool C and D. And then to win a quarterfinal against England, or that whatever Argentina's still doing, because that game against Samoa shows they're still not serious about the World Cup. Like, you just need to be competent. Dave Rennie would have given you competence.
100%. 100%. Like, Argentina's basically a Boffelli away from actually being out the World Cup. And like England, who basically like couldn't buy a win, just found the most competent game plan, the most basic, simple game plan as to how we're going to structure this World Cup. Same as like Wales, for example. Like, it's not pretty what they do. It's just the only difference now is the fact that their base kicker is Jack Morgan. Like that's the only difference. Like Jack Morgan he's got a kick pass assist. He's got a left-footed little clearance. He's got a 222. But all Australia had to do exactly was just be competent. That's all they had to do. Dave Rennie at least was showing glimpses and a bit of experience here and there. Got unlucky with Samu Karevi and Kurt Cooper getting injured. That's all they just needed to do with the hoop. I don't understand what has gone on. Like I look at those games, I'm like, man, like someone like a Quade Cooper, there's no one for these youngsters to like sort of look back to. And I understand he says like the youngsters can learn from this going forward, and they can, but also like I can't learn much about
from this.
Like the certain things like certain things I don't need to learn this. Like you just can have someone like it's the same way like I don't like Leinster sent those poor kids to go play against the Blue Bulls. They're not learning from that thing from that day. There's nothing they're gonna learn from that day besides that we're not playing against South African guys ever again. Like there's no lesson. Like so I think with Australia it's like it's almost like instead of going like one step back to go forward and sort of like Dave Rennie and because even Dave Rennie's team was always young, but he kept the Hoopers, the Coopers, and guys that even like a Foley. I'm just thinking on the weekend, even like a Bernard Foley would be fantastic in a situation with this group. Hoopers there, you can do something, and I thought, man, they can still. Again, for anyone watching this from other countries, make sure your country does not start putting test matches on a Thursday, or you will get knocked out in the group stage. You will not make it past your group. So do not disrespect rugby. We're playing test matches on a Thursday, or this will be the effect. Your head coach will be fired after a camp in January, and you will play only kids like it's in a Premier League tournament, and your team will be knocked out of the World Cup. Let this be a lesson to everybody out there.
So, number of Australian squad members that have more than 40 caps, 5. I think it's White, Korobete, Karevi, Tupou, and Slipper. Slipper has, I think, 20% of the number of caps in the whole squad.
3 players were picked for the World Cup squad and didn't play a single test.
16 players have less than 10 tests, Kooks. 16. Almost the majority. What the hell was this guy doing? Sunday or Monday morning, I was just, when I thought about it more and more, I was like, this man has really actually done almost everything he's done is the opposite of what you should do in this situation. Like, he's genuinely made every wrong decision. I've seen this before. I've seen Doc Rivers choke 3-1 leads for multiple teams, for the Sixers, for the Clippers, for everyone. I know this. This is Doc Rivers, man. Like, I can see it now. Like, he's very much choked this whole job. And yeah, look, the fact that Japan and Eddie Jones aren't denying this story, yeah, this man is heading to Tokyo.
Yeah.
And you know what? Get your payday, Eddie. I hope maybe, I'm sad for Japan, but yeah, I guess they can't really convince Tony Brown or a good coach to stay there. I mean, they asking for Frans Ludeker. I'd genuinely go for Frans Ludeker rather than Eddie Jones right now.
Well, something like I don't know. I think it's the one place that Eddie Jones doesn't have. Like South Africa and Japan is the 2 jobs he's probably left in a good note where there's no bad blood. He didn't get
left Stormers on a pretty bad note.
Oh yeah, true. But I mean, I forgot about. Well, he did call it Tabletop Mountain, so that's a fireable offense as you go. But I mean, like, us Stormers fans must get over it. Like, it's England. Aye, man. Like, imagine me, like, I just left varsity and then I get a job at this like low rising marketing company. Then Apple calls me to be the CEO. I have to leave. Aye, man. Stormers fans, get over it. Like, what's he gonna say? No, because so you can coach against Western Force. But England's coaching. Aye, man. Stormers fans, do get over that. Look now, you got Dobbo. Happy times are back. Happy times are back there. Yeah, I must get over it. Every time Stormers fans are crying, move on, man. It's like if now I'm just chilling and like Margot Robbie wants to go to, hey, tough life happens, guys. Like, it happens. Sorry.
Not Margot Robbie. Oh, Kooks. Yeah, so let's go through some of the other news.
My girlfriend's not listening to this pod. If she is, I apologize.
Yeah,
I didn't mean it.
I am not
I got caught up in
gonna.
them. Got caught up in the motion. Sorry, no, I got caught up. I'm not leaving for anyone. Sorry.
Public apology to Cooks' girlfriend. We're sorry about that. Okay, so let's go through some of the other news. I think let's start with probably the second best, the second best game of the weekend. Georgia versus Portugal, 18-18. Just an epic game. It looked at the start that Georgia was going to run away with it. They had the early try, they had all the dominance, and then Portugal just decided, nah, we've had enough of this. And their right wing, Rafael Storti, who scored 2 brilliant tries. Like, he's only 22 as well. Squidge says he's going to be the first superstar from Portuguese rugby, and you can believe that. And these teams went toe to toe for 80 minutes, and then it ends on a draw, which I think is probably the fair result. But both teams will be pretty unhappy with that. Cooks, yeah, that was just an epic game, and yeah, obviously, I think we all have to say the things that most other people are saying, that we need to see Georgia and Portugal play tier 1 teams more. We need to see, World Rugby just opening up the gates more for more opportunities for these teams. And you know what, Cooks, I'm going to definitely get an illegal stream to watch the next Georgia versus Portugal game. Like, the Rugby European Championships has another fan now.
No, 100%. I mean, what a crack of a game. Also, like, it's such a weird game because Georgia looked like they were on cruise control in the first half, thinking like, oh, okay, cool. They sort of should have had a try or 2 extra, and then Portugal just came out and, they were fantastic in the second half. I think it's such a really, really good game of rugby. And like you said, Tal, these are the games that make the World Cup worthwhile. They make it such a special tournament because, you look at how far Georgia and Portugal have come. Portugal, I think the first World Cup 2007 were just happy to be there. Now you look at the growth in their game, which is, and organic growth, because World Rugby is pretty much doing much to try to grow the game and sort of get them playing tier 1 nations. They need to play tier 1 nations. Why is there no, even if they're playing against, for example, like, why can't those sides have a test against a Wales? They play the Springboks once every 2, or have tours to Fiji, have tours to Scotland, and have tours to. They should be playing in those games. They should be invited to these end of the year tours. We should be going there. The game has got to grow because you can see the value in these games. But Thala, I want to ask you an interesting question quickly. Do you think if it's a pool game and it's a draw, do you think they should do the Super Rugby Pacific thing and actually do an extra, like a 10 minutes extra time, sort of like, I know a draw does feel like it's such an anticlimax. I know Super Rugby Pacific has to sort of make sure there's always a result, but do you think the Rugby World Cup should implement that, especially for a game like that, like, just to, because now Portugal have the first win, Georgia needs their win. So what do you think? Should like a 10-minute extra time even in the pool stage?
Cooks, it's actually a very interesting idea. I think my only pushback to it is the consequences for points difference and tries difference, all that sort of stuff. I mean, with the Pool B, there's a situation where if Scotland gets bonus point wins against both Ireland and South Africa, and other things happen, that there'll be 3 teams with tied at the top, and then it gets into bonus points. Points difference and tries difference, all that sort of stuff. And it is unfair if Georgia and Portugal played another 20 minutes, that obviously they'll score more points. So that's my only problem with it.
Maybe even golden point.
Yeah, but maybe that might be the way to do it then, because it would have been, at least for that game, that's when you wish the WWE was running things, because Vince McMahon would have walked out and continued that game. So I think that was definitely needed for that particular game, because I felt fine, because I didn't think both teams deserved to lose, because, as you say, Georgia in the first half dominated that game. David Niniashvili was kicking like a dream, and every time he got the ball, he got it in space and he was cooking people. I was like, I don't know if I did tweet it, but I was ready to launch a hot take that Niniashvili is the best tier 2 backline player in the world, and say no to Tuisova, Naisalevu, and Suteni, and all those people. But in the second half,
don't forget the great Felipe Echeverri from Uruguay. Please, Thala, please.
Oh,
the
sorry,
rockstar himself, the Mr.
Drop Goal himself. No, that man, when he kicked that drop goal, I knew Jared would love him, but I was just like, you know what, you've earned my respect as well.
You know what?
Then in the second half, yeah.
So you know the thing with Echeverry, you don't know what to expect. One moment does a drop goal, next moment he's blasting his own player 5 minutes out and is conceded a try. That's my type of rugby player. You don't know what he's going to do, but you have to watch and see. Felipe Echeverry, what a player! Okay,
Yeah. I think another player to add to your list of chefs. I think you need Kooks. You need a tweet where you list your top chefs, your top Michelin star chefs in this World Cup. But
no, I need
Geronimo
to.
Portela, the Portuguese fly half, he's a chef supreme. That man, because the man just likes going into the line and delivering a nice little offload just out of the hand. There, he did that for the one Storty try as well. Like, number one, has an epic name, Geronimo, fantastic name for someone. Number two, apparently Storti only started rugby because Portela invited him to come down to the rugby club when they were like both kids. So he literally recruited probably the most talented Portuguese player in this generation to play rugby as well. Like, now, man's has my respect for sure. And before we move on, Nicholas Martins, the Portuguese flank, had an epic game. Like, the sort of game that if he was wearing like a green Irish jersey or a green Springbok jersey, you'd be like world class, best player in the world type of player. Like, tackling everything that moved, stopped almost a certain try with that holding up as well. Big carries, big turnovers as well. Like, he had a good game. And Beko Gorgadze, the Georgian 8, there was a moment in that game when Georgia seemed like they were just, I think they almost like resigned themselves to losing the game. But Gorgadze said, not on my watch, guys. And he just carried that team into, the opportunity to try and draw the game later. Like, yeah, obviously he's a great player. We know that he plays in the top 14 as well. And he's obviously like in that sort of like, if not world class, but pretty close to that already. But yeah, he showed in that game on Saturday how big he is, because he really drags Georgia into the possibility of getting a result in that game. Kooks, yeah, very much the best game of the tournament so far, at least in terms of the non-mainstream games, definitely the best game of that tournament.
No, definitely.
And yeah, we're going to have to find that illegal link for Portugal versus Georgia next year.
No, 100%. No, we need it. We need it.
Okay, next big news is sad news, which is obviously, well, this happened almost a week ago now, which is Antoine Dupont's injury. He's fractured his cheekbone after a tackle from Jan Deysel, who's now got a 5-week ban from it, which I think is a little bit unfair because, yeah, there have been worse tackles that have gotten much less than what Dupont got. But yeah, Dupont seems like, at least at this moment, he'll be coming back to the squad at the end of this week. They are trying to get a mask for him. And yeah, I mean, Cooks, I think we know in the NBA the theory that if you play in a mask, you ball out. So this makes me a bit worried that Antoine Dupont plus a mask will actually be an unreal player.
No, 100%. It scares me. I don't know how they're going to do it. I mean, obviously, it's rugby is a hectic game to be like tackling someone in scrum cap is one thing, but if they're in a mask, it's a whole new different option. One way to get someone to tackle lower. But yeah, it was sad. I think I know a lot of people were having a go at Felvin Galtier for not taking over at halftime. It's tough. I mean, like, I think Galtier for me said it perfectly at halftime. It's like, you've got to play these Oaks. Like, you can't put them in cotton wool for a month because they play the All Blacks first. And I think, yeah, there's certain guys who, it's such a hard place to be because he plays him for half and maybe feels like he's going to be undercooked. I mean, there's stats for these guys that all follow to see where you go. But again, it's a freak accident for your day. So I think there's a lot of worse tackles that, I mean, Shoulder Boy on Farrell should have been banned longer than the one that the Daysel one. But I mean, the poor Oak was being in front of them. They're making it sound like Daysel was like a hitman and having their public apologies. And I'm like, it's a high tackle. Like, happened, Gary Collie, you shook Pontin out of the game and you went like, move on. But yeah, I mean, it is sad. I think it's going to be interesting. I think with France, again, Thala, it's that same mold with the Springboks. He said, like, you losing one world-class player to Manie and Dupont is the things he was doing in the Namibia game, the freakish things that he was like, like losing that because that's his ability to sort of do that in the game. I think Thala, it's hard for me to, I think that while I'm rushing back to have Luku and Jalibe starting to lose your two starting and to go against the Boks or Ireland, it's a tough ask. And they need their shit house you to be at a different level to get through that quarterfinal. But I'm sure DuPont will play. I mean, you've seen Sia come back from a knee injury in record time, so don't be surprised to see DuPont rocking a man iron mask here and playing in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, someone tweeted. I've been following French rugby Twitter, and shout out to Google, to Twitter for that translate option, because you see some bangers there. Someone tweeted that DuPont should get into contact with Pogba's witch doctor, and I laughed. I laughed so hard at that. Like, I almost was crying at that. That was ridiculous. Kooks, I'll take you through a bit of a thing from history, which is 2019, Japan overperformed as the hosts and got to the quarterfinal. 2015, okay, England went out. 2011, New Zealand won as the hosts the whole World Cup. 2007, France had a bad start, but then they beat New Zealand in the quarterfinals and have a big result there to get to the semifinals. 2003, Australia goes all the way to the final and only get beaten by Johnny Wilkinson. 1995, we know what the Springboks did in their own home World Cup. So a home World Cup usually has the hosts at least deliver one big result. And yeah, my thing is, I don't think it's the end of the story for France if DuPont is not able to play. It looks like he will play, but if DuPont's not able to play, I still think they could and might actually, yeah, I think they could win against whoever if it's the Springboks or the Irish or whoever. I think they still win. I still think that there's one game that almost the French crowd and France just getting that extra leg from that crowd will give them. I don't think it was the New Zealand game. I think the New Zealand game they just they just ground out a team that they were much better than. There's a game that's going to be on the balance that France wins almost because of their crowd or because they're at home or because of the French TV directors. So and number two, obviously, is that Luca and Jalibert are teammates. Luca's been a part of the French squad for a long time. He's a very good box kicker. He's obviously not a freak like DuPont, but if Aldred comes back, Marchand comes back, they have everyone else in that team. Yeah, if I'm the Springboks, I'm not taking this lightly, which is why I'm also poo-pooing everyone's suggestion that no, the Springboks lost on purpose on Saturday against Ireland, all part of the plan to face France in the quarterfinals. I think it's the worst case scenario for any team to face France in the quarterfinals, because either DuPont comes back as a hero or they're playing for DuPont, who's injured in the stands. They do maybe have his jersey there for the team photo and all that sort of stuff. Like, that atmosphere for the quarterfinals is going to be crazy. So yeah, Kooks, are you seeing what I'm seeing about my theory that there's maybe possibilities for France to still come out?
No, 100%. I mean, it's still an incredible outfit. I mean, the depth they've created. I mean, like, even if, for example, like it's still a Saran to come off if DuPont is out for good and you still think he's a quality 9 just sitting at home. I think, like you said, it's still such a classy outfit that with a ton of World Cup players, and also the way they play, Thala, actually, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like the kicking game, the defensive game is like, it's not like it'll change much. And I think it's a game that can travel well, a game that can cover for injuries and the injuries lost. There's sort of incredible pack, sort of incredible depth in that pack as well. So it's definitely a build for the playoffs. And I think with DuPont on the bench, they'll rally behind, even the stands, they could rally behind him, but him on the field, I mean, they can still do mayhem. I think your theory is definitely right. I mean, it's right off France on your own peril. It's the same as Springboks. I mean, these also have lost Tamak, and now DuPont could be out. There's Aldrit, and they still up there on the favourites. It just shows the depth and what Galtier has built. I mean, we all remember when he was taking teams in June for June tours without leaving his starters at all at home. When the Jaminez came through and guys like that, because he was leaving starters at home. They got the likes of Olivon and Damag. They weren't going to Australia. He was going to the new breed. He was going to Japan without his starters just to start and find New York and create this incredible depth. And this is what he has now. And you can see the effect of it in terms of domestically and now. So this is where we see his gamble paying off. And that's why you said, like, France and the Springboks have got so many injuries, but they're still sitting there as one of the favorites as well. It just shows an incredible job our staff and the French staff has done.
Yeah, so I think the story's not finished for France. Okay, quickly on the other results. Cooks, you can just add a few words to each game. Italy versus Uruguay. Italy wins 38 points to 17. We've talked about the hero that is Echeverri for Uruguay. But the second half was, I think, a masterclass from Tommaso Allen and Paolo Garbisi. Cooks, do you think Italy could spring a surprise on either New Zealand or France?
I don't think a surprise to win. I think it'll be a lot closer than. I don't think they'll get blown out. I think it's. I mean, they play really good rugby, Tyler. I mean, that's been the nice thing about it is the rugby they've been playing. Like, and also I wanted to say earlier with I'm not saying at all that Italy's a tier 2 nation, is probably at the bottom of the tier 1s, but the tier 1, the rugby that's being played by all these smaller nations has been great to watch. I mean, you guys play entertaining rugby. So does Portugal. So does Georgia now. Italy, where these are normally the sides a couple of years ago, they used to play that turgid, boring rugby. Just to try and stay in games. Now they're throwing the ball around. One, they're being so attacking, especially Italy now. I think they'll definitely back themselves. They won't go. It won't be an easy outfit. I don't think it will be a 80 or 70 point walk off. I think the All Blacks are going to have to fight for it because Italy is going to become and Italy's pack is better than you think. The Lamaros and things like that, they're going to be up for that game. So I do think I can't see them beating one of those two, but I definitely think they could make things interesting for about 50, 60 minutes. And I think for Italy, I think that would be the win. Unfortunately, they're just in the wrong draw, in the wrong group.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think New Zealand will have Lomax and Frizzell back. So yeah, the door's slightly open. I think it's very slightly ajar for Italy to maybe come through. I wish Italy would learn how to kick tactically though, because they seem to be allergic to that. But yeah, hopefully they do at least give both teams a good game. We talked about France and Namibia. France getting the biggest win of the World Cup so far, 96 points to 0. Argentina versus Samoa, we mentioned Argentina winning 19 points to 10. Samoa still has a chance in the World Cup. They can still hopefully make a bit of they can beat Japan and beat England. They can put themselves in the quarterfinal. Yeah, Argentina, as we talked about, is one Bofeli away from not looking like a good team. This game was just chaos, Cooks. Like both teams just deciding to do the worst decisions, first of all in the rain, and then second of all, just I don't know, they just played off complete vibes at times and just were either throwing the ball around or kicking when they're not supposed to kick or just doing crazy things this whole game.
No, 100%. Hey, I don't know what to make of Argentina. I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know if they feel like playing rugby or not. Like, I think they still get the quarterfinals, and I think knowing them, Thala, like remember like 2015 quarterfinal, like they were like they came through the group, like didn't do much, and then they rocked Ireland in the quarterfinal, rocked them. So I think like that could be their little master plan, but yeah, I think they won Bofeli away. Bofeli's an incredible rugby player as well. There's just so many players at the moment playing at such a high level, and Bofeli is obviously one of them. I mean, like that game, probably like you said, if Bofeli played for Samoa wins that game.
Yeah,
and yeah, I don't know what to make of Argentina. I don't know what's going on there. I think it's just the best thing they did was actually get the win. I think they're going to get better. I'm not going to write them off yet. I think there's still a lot on that side there for them to improve on, to get better on. But oh no, it's just still crazy for me how they've sort of gotten away with it. But luckily they're probably the worst, the easier. I mean, the easier game is sort of up ahead of them now as opposed to the harder ones.
Yeah, let's see how it goes because Japan also has a chance to still win that or still be second in that group. Then England wins 71-0 to Chile. Yeah, so Cooks, I don't know if you've received the email that Henry Arundel is the best player in the world and that Marcus Smith is the answer to all of England's problems. Did you receive that email?
No, I did. That's what happens now. No, to be fair, the email I got is that England were like, listen, all of the tries we're going to score now, they're all done. Arundel, you got 5, so you can go back to the bench. So guys, this is the tries we're going to score now. We're going to go back to averaging 1 try per test. So everyone be happy, be merry. This is the plan now. Arundel feasted. Marcus Smith feasted at 15. Everybody's happy. Farrell's back. They just ticked all the boxes. Who do you need to please? Oh, the Farrell fans. Okay, he's back. Oh, Marcus Smith's fans. Okay, there you go. Played 15. Oh, Aaron Noisy player. There you go. 5 tries for him. Now both they can do whatever you want now for the rest of the World Cup. He just ticked all boxes. That's how you treat these minnow sides. That's how you put them away. You let Twitter streets be happy. Make them happy, and then you move on and play your boring rugby again.
The contrast for this game versus the Samoa game is going to be crazy because they're going to come back with some very much Warrenball coming out there. And then finally, Scotland beats Tonga 45 points to 17. I mean, I think Tonga got more interested in trying to take off people's heads than actually playing rugby at some points, apart from a lovely try for Bedtime Ifuna. And then Duan van der Merwe has beaten now over 80 defenders in 10 test matches this year. Like, he is a machine at the moment. Kooks, you haven't had a chance to really talk about Scotland, so I will give you the floor.
Oh, Scotland. Oh, shame. I think the Boks just blitzed them basically in that first test and just suffocated the life out of them. I thought it was 8 o'clock on a Sunday night and watching Anaconda. That's how restrictive the Boks were to them. I think on the weekend they were good. Did enough to beat Tonga. I mean, Duan van der Merwe actually plays incredibly well. He beats all the defenders in the world except for the Springboks. I think that's what I like about him. I respect that he does not do his madness against us. Then he takes it out of the poor Tongans. He's just Duan van der Merwe's ability to beat defenders is actually incredible. Like, I mean, he is playing at a very high level at the moment, and I think Scotland played well. Carl Stanos is a walking trial machine at the moment, but I think Scotland are very, very solid. I think it's a shame for them. It is tough. I saw a tweet which summed up Scotland so well after Saturday's game. He's like, one game in the World Cup and you're already knocked out. It's the most Scottish thing ever. So I had a good chuckle because they essentially played one game. They're essentially out. Now they need like a miracle to sort of get through. But shame. I think, again, like we spoke about this in a preview pod, like sides like Scotland, Italy just cannot believe their luck. Like, they just cannot. Like, why couldn't we be in the Wales, England, and Fiji? Why are we just banished to this where it's like, because I mean, I can't see Scotland getting a bonus point against Ireland, a bonus point win. I mean, even if they do win, like, you just can't see them doing by a bonus point, and that's the big problem. Like, so I'm sure Ireland will potentially rest a few players, even though, I mean, they have a bye this week, but. Yeah, Scotland, it's another campaign of what if.
Yeah. And then, just going on to our matches that are coming up this week, we can go through very quickly. So first of all is the first win in the World Cup ever derby, Uruguay versus Namibia. So whoever wins this game will have their first win ever in a Rugby World Cup, which is obviously a very exciting opportunity. Unfortunately for Namibia, it doesn't look like it'll be them because they just don't seem to be at the same level as Uruguay. Kooks, but hopefully it's a game and hopefully Namibia can give themselves a good account, because part of the reason why they lost 96-0 to the French was that they were resting their best players for this game, but now they don't have Daisel or Leroux Malan for this game.
Yeah, I think they will. I think they definitely will give a better account of themselves. I mean, I think it's something they can target, a sculpt they can target. I think Uruguay's obviously, for them, they're probably obviously targeting Italy. I think they're going to beat that one up and sort of thought Namibia was a bit more of a lock. But I think Namibia, I mean, it's a chance to guard the World Cup on a high. Shame they've had to go for France, the All Blacks. I don't know what the rugby gods did to them, but I mean, they're like them in Romania, who also had to go to Ireland in the Springboks. But I think Uruguay should win, but I really hope it's a close game and Namibia do something for us.
Yeah, hopefully they give a game. Unfortunately for Namibia, like, they had the craziest or like the worst of all the draws, because they played all 4 of their games in 19 days and they finished with the World Cup. So they literally will fly off on Thursday or Friday, and most other teams haven't even played their 3rd game yet, which is ridiculous. So they don't even have a chance to enjoy France after this. They didn't have a week off like other teams. Like Wales have a week off now, and Louis Zamet has gone to Cannes to continue his Instagram baddie era. Namibia's not even have that chance to do that after this game. So I think they got the very short end of the stick with this World Cup. Kooks, a few predictions. Japan versus Samoa.
Japan, I said that so very quickly. Samoa, because I want
Yeah.
Japan to speed along this Eddie Jones story. I need it. We need it.
No, we definitely need it. Yeah, I'm also going for Samoa. Then, yeah, hopefully they can still make the knockouts. If they can then beat Japan and then beat England. New Zealand versus Italy. I'll predict Italy will lead after 60 minutes, and then New Zealand comes through.
Oh, nice. That's a good pick. I'll probably go to New Zealand by 25.
Oh, okay. New Zealand to come back cooking. Look, I think this next game, Argentina versus Chile in Saturday afternoon, it'll probably be an Argentina win, but I think at least stay for the first 20, 30 minutes because
it's
I can see Chile.
It's going to be doing the most.
Chile's going to kick off and it's going to go mad. The crowd's going to be fantastic. I think at least the first half will be competitive. I won't even be surprised if it's close after half time.
No, me too. No, 100%.
Fiji versus Georgia is interesting. I mean, Georgia hasn't been great in this World Cup. I mean, they lost badly to Australia, which is getting worse the longer this World Cup goes. And they obviously drew to Portugal. But yeah, Fiji and Georgia are two different styles of teams. And they obviously historically two different sides, but they're both trying to be more like each other now. Fiji's trying to be a nice structured game and play the set pieces and stuff. Georgia's trying to run it and get their outside backs going. So that's going to be a very interesting game between these two. But Cook, surely Fiji continues their form?
Yeah, I think it's a massive game for Fiji. I think obviously they want to show consistency, and I mean they have shown it, but to bounce back from the Australia game and sort of put Georgia away and get a bonus point, But I think definitely Fiji too. I think not definitely, but I think Fiji should actually win that game and sort of cement themselves into the next round. I mean, this is a perfect opportunity for them. I mean, they managed to get 6 points out of the Wales and Australia games, and now this is the cushion they wanted to get for themselves to sort of push through against Georgia and Portugal. So I'm definitely going to go Fiji.
Yeah. And then Scotland versus Romania. The question for Scotland is how many in terms of points. I saw some permutations, but they pretty much have to get at least 67 points more than the Springboks to put themselves in a good position. If likely things happen, like Ireland gets a bonus point, losing bonus points, South Africa gets a try bonus point in their game. So Scotland has to rack up the score in this game. Cooks, I think they should actually just start a back three of Duan, Kinghorn, and Carl Steyn.
Yeah, poor Romania. They don't need it. They don't need to play the Boks, and they must deal with and then deal what you call it, and then deal Duan from America. That just seems unfair. That's just poor Romania. I don't know what they did to World Rugby. What do they do to deserve this? Why is just you play the top two teams in the world. Now you're going to deal with Scotland, who needs to score points. Shame Romania. I feel so sorry for them.
Yeah, it's unfortunately going to get very ugly for them. Australia versus Portugal. Yeah, you know what? Let's do it for vibes. Let's go for a Portugal win. Why not? Australia, I think they're going to play their second team. They're going to play a person called Josh Kemeny, who's apparently an utility forward and back because, it is there for vibes. Who knows? I actually think if Portugal gets a good start, this could get very, very, very scary for Australia.
They've got to start well. Australia has started the same when they play against Georgia. They had to get off the mark very, very well. Australia, don't do this again. Please, 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 please. You're going to kill poor Drew Mitchell. Just think about Drew. Play for Drew this weekend. Play for Drew. Australia to win for Drew.
Shame. Just for Drew. Oh, if Australia lose that game, I don't care what the SuperSport just needs to make a plan and just stream that whole press conference from Eddie Jones, because who knows what will happen if he just quits on the spot, if he signs his Japanese contract in front of us, if he swears at every journalist there. SuperSport, Motsiri, if you're listening to this, please make a plan, because we need to hear every word of that press conference if the Wallabies somehow manage to lose this. And also shout out to Francisco Isaac. He's literally the best follow for Tier 2 rugby in Europe, and He's great. He's obviously Portuguese as well. And yeah, he's very much enjoying Portugal, probably playing some of the best rugby in this World Cup so far. And then finally, the Springboks are going to end off the weekend against Tonga. Kooks, very quickly, we haven't really discussed it when we discussed the Boks. Strategy for selection. Are we protecting some of the big boys, or are we trying to get as many points as possible for the unlikely event of Scotland getting big points? And then, yeah, how do we manage the Handré Pollard thing, at least for this game?
Thala, I think I'll have a balance. I think I'll play Sia again. For example, Kitsoff must be nowhere near rugby field this weekend. That's the number one. He must be nowhere near rugby field this weekend. Like, no, he must actually be. He should be in Cannes with his wife, with Amy, relaxing, just feet up, just enjoying the sights of what France has to offer. Not even if just get him out of the country. Send him to Venice. Let him just put his feet up for a bit. I think it should be a balance. I'd like to see obviously like a. No, I think Esther Hazen. I think Esther Hazen, and it's tough because I think Handré Pollard should start, but I think if you start Handré Pollard, you start him with a 9 that you start in the quarterfinal. If that makes sense, keep the continuity. Like give him if Faf's going to start, give him a Faf. If you have Willems to start him at 15, then give him a Willems or give him a Willie. So I think that should be the slight continuity. I think Esther Hazen sure does come in. I think it's the 13 probably. If you go just for race sake, but I actually just think wouldn't be surprised to see Creel and Doug start again. Because with Pollard, obviously you got to try to get just good rotations in, and sort of get the same guys in, and then I think it would be obviously like Moody, and I think Moody looks like he's fit, so I think he deserves I think he deserves when we play against Romania, but I think he deserves another game. Moody by Pimpy probably, and then see probably very at 15. I think I'll have Libbok on the bench. I'll have 5-3. Obviously, normal Aki to start. Maybe I might give it a bit, maybe another run just to sort of get him up to scale. Because also we do have that bye coming up next week, so I think it'll be a bit of a balance. I think I don't mind seeing the likes of Itzebeth, maybe Sia, Dwayne coming in. I think just to. I think the big one is how to manage Bongi. I would actually start Dion Fourie and I'd have Bongi off the bench. I think Dion to start and Bongi off the bench and then sort of take it from there. What did you do?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page, Kooks. I'm also very concerned about Tonga. Just if the game goes away from them, they seem to be that typical team that if they start conceding points, they start to go into let's hurt people type of game plan. So I think as far as possible, Bongi number 1 doesn't play that game. I like the suggestion for Steven Kitsoff. I do think that we as a country and the Stormers owe him and Amy at least a midweek trip to Cannes or to Venice, like you said. So that's completely fine with me. Steven must just let me know if he wants to know where to go to in Cannes. I would pretty much do a similar thing. I think Faf and Pollard and Villy Leroux are the 19-15. I don't really mind what you do from 11 to 14. I think you can make arguments for either people, but I think just to keep people fresh as far as possible. Then up front, I wouldn't mind rest for Sia, but I totally understand where you're coming from as well. Dwayne at 8 for me, and then if Koch is able to play, you can play him in the 23. Kitsoff's obviously on holiday in his boat, and then I think between if possible, and I mean if the Boks really do back this Dion Fourie, Marco van Staden timeshare that they're doing for the number 16 jersey, then I don't think Tonga's that good that they would actually beat us, even if we play a second team. So I genuinely think you should not even put Bongi in the 23, put Dion at number 2, put Marco at number 16, and problem solve. If things aren't going well in your scrums or line out, problem solve. Like kind of do an island, which they kind of did with Josh van der Fleer earlier this year with the game against Scotland. And just be like, okay, Dion, Marco, you don't have the safety blanket of Mongi Bonambi coming on in the second half or whatever. you figure out the line out. You and Snyman or you and Mostert figure out the line out. You figure out how we're going to go in the scrum. Like that would probably give a lot more, I think, confidence for them and comfort, at least for me as a fan, that they can and hopefully hold their own against Malvaka for 20 minutes. Then if we play Bongi for 40 minutes or 20 minutes in the game, like take the safety blanket off and let's see how it goes. Yeah, so I wouldn't mind something like that. I think if the Springboks can get a fast start like they did against Romania, I think Tonga falls away. So the Springboks can get 2 or 3 quick tries, which is what Scotland didn't do in their game, and keep Tonga in the game until about 50 or 60 minutes. It becomes a lot easier for you. So yeah, hopefully a quick start for the Boks, and they can just start running up the score. Yeah, Kooks, I don't know what other maybe European cities you think the kids all should be visiting this week, though.
Maybe go to Rome, Ryder Cup weekends coming up. Perfect time for Kitty's love his golf. I think maybe we should go to the Vatican, watch him golf on the weekend. Just let him put his feet up because every time we'd attempt to be rested, something's happened. Remember against Australia, because when we rested in the front of New Zealand early, then that goes down. And Kitty's got to play. Then against Romania, FC was down to play. Went to Argentina to go play. The least he can do, let the man go watch some Ryder Cup. He needs it. He deserves it. It's the least you can do. Like, he needs some sort of rest.
Yeah, I would love if Kits and Bongi should be having flip-flops for the whole week, honestly. Like, I don't want to see them having togs in any practice during the course of the week. I think they totally deserve it. Eben probably could do with a bit of rest. I think there was parts of the game where I was like, oh, maybe he's not 100% fit or back fit from the injury that he had against Scotland. So maybe he can also get onto the flip-flop squad. But yeah, I think this week should be just about the main goal for this week is Handré Pollard must just get back into the full swing of Test rugby. So as many minutes as he can play as possible, trying to make sure that he can fall into sort of the Springbok game plan, getting those combinations back with Faf de Klerk and Willie Leroux especially. The best result for the Springboks is bonus point win, hopefully with a bit of a score, no injuries, and Handré Pollard looks like he can play Test rugby again. I think that would be the result. Okay, Kooks, I think let's end it there. Yeah, I think just a great weekend of rugby that we've broken down for over 2 hours. Big shout out to, just been great rugby, great discourse as well. And also just a reminder that we are running a promotion with our friends at Classic Shirt South Africa. They are selling some replica South Africa supporters jerseys that you can get on their site for 10% off if you use the promo code RugbyBits10. So yeah, please, they are really good. They're very comfortable. I wore them myself, especially with this winter in Cape Town not seeming to end. They're also quite warm as well. So please look into that as well. And yeah, please follow us on our social media channels. And yeah, look out for any of our content going forward as well this week. Kooks, thank you so much for joining. And yeah, I hope Kooks will release his list of number 10 chefs in this World Cup.
No, I think it's my plan for the week. Thanks, Thala. Cheers, guys.
Bye, guys.